Chapter 221. Yi Ro came with a bang and left with a gust of wind. She became the queen in the eyes of countless boys and the idol of countless girls in Rosefinch Secondary. Because of Yi Ro's arrival, Fang Yan suddenly found that black shirts and pants were popular in Rosefinch Secondary. What was more surprising was that it didn't spread among the students, but among the female teachers. It turned out that every woman dreamed of being a queen. No matter which female teacher walked to the podium in a black leather shirt, black leather pants, black high heels, and a small scarf tied around her neck, they would be cheered wildly by the students. Fang Yan wasn't affected at all. He went to class, ate, and slept as usual. Standing on the podium, Fang Yan said with a smile, "I've assigned the homework. I hope you can think about it when you go back, although I can't check whether you have thought about it or not. Well, today's class is over. Class dismissed." After saying that, Fang Yan walked toward the office with the language textbook that he rarely opened. "Ms. Fang Yan!" Someone shouted behind him. Fang Yan turned around and saw Chiba Kaori standing behind him in her Rosefinch uniform with a smile. He stopped and asked with a smile, "Chiba Kaori, what can I do for you?" Chiba Kaori opened her mouth, but she couldn't express her thoughts in Wuxia language. She had been in Wuxia for a while and had learned some simple pronunciation in Wuxia language, but she still couldn't speak it as fluently as other students. She couldn't understand most of the lessons taught by Fang Yan or other teachers. She could only study by herself and tutor after class. Of course, she didn't care about how many points she could get in each test. What she cared about was whether she could be influenced by the pure Wuxia culture and obtain the secret of the ultimate tea ceremony. What she really wanted to find out was why Qin Etian could beat her in the tea ceremony competition. That was the only reason why she came to Wuxia. A pure and stubborn girl. "Teacher Fang Yan, can I speak in English?" Chiba Kaori asked Fang Yan with an apologetic smile. "Sure." Fang Yan nodded. "My English level might be the same as your Wuxia level, so I'll try to keep it simple, thank you." Chiba Kaori bowed in gratitude. "Teacher Fang Yan, I know that you are going to have a duel with my father, is that right?" Fang Yan looked at Chiba Kaori with a burning gaze as he pondered the hidden meaning behind the girl's question. "Wouldn't it be better to feign ignorance?" Fang Yan nodded and said, "It's your father who challenged me. I'm still considering if I should go. As you know, our schedule is rather tight. I'm Chiba Kaor's language teacher, not Chiba Kaor's swordsmanship opponent." "I'm sure you'll be there, right?" Chiba Kaori asked. Fang Yan frowned and asked, "Why do you say that?" "It's just a hunch." Chiba Kaori's smile was gentle and sweet. She was humble and obedient from the bottom of her bones, making it impossible for anyone to dislike her. Maybe it's because of a man's pride, or maybe it's because of the pursuit of ultimate swordsmanship or national justice. "I'm sure you'll be there." "Are you looking forward to it?" Fang Yan asked. There was a hint of anger in his heart. "What's wrong with this girl? Your younger brother bullied my student and got beaten up by me. In the end, your family tried everything to beat me up, sending ninjas to sneak up on me and challenging me with Chiba Kaor. Even so, I still let you study in my classroom with a big heart. Did I make you stand at the door as punishment when you can't answer a question? Did I deduct points from your language test? Although you only scored 5 points, I don't know how to deduct points without being discovered. But are you looking forward to your father beating me up?" "How so?" Chiba Kaori shook her head lightly. "I'm looking forward to it, but I'm more nervous. I don't want my father to lose to you because I know that he's spent his entire life pursuing the ultimate swordsmanship. This battle is very meaningful to him. But my parents didn't give birth to me just to be beaten up," Fang Yan said with an unfriendly expression. "You don't want your father to lose, so you're looking forward to me losing? Are you telling me this because you want me to let your father go?" Fang Yan thought. He wished that he could proudly and boldly say, "Don't worry, I won't beat him to death. I'll beat him half to death, if he can beat me." "Mr. Fang Yan, you've misunderstood me." Chiba Kaori looked anxious. She quickly explained in English, "I don't want my father to lose, but I don't want you to lose either. You're a good teacher, a teacher that everyone respects. I can tell from the other students' eyes that they like and admire you. You're their role model. I think they don't want you to lose. Fang Yan looked at Chiba Kaori with a puzzled expression. She didn't want her father to lose, and neither did she want herself to lose. However, since it was a martial arts competition, there was bound to be a winner and a loser. Fang Yan would go all out, and Chiba Kaori wouldn't hold back either. This was a form of respect for the opponent as well as for what she had learned. I'm really conflicted. Chiba Kaori flicked her long hair and said with sincerity in her eyes, I just hope that all of you can get what you want. When the time comes, I'll be there to cheer for all of you. Fang Yan patted Chiba Kaori's shoulder. You're a good student, just like the other students in Class 9. 10 feet abyss. This place isn't bad, right? Qin Etian asked as he looked at the beautiful scenery before him. Clear water, blue sky, and mountains in the distance. A cool breeze blew, and the sun set. It was truly the best scenery in the world. 10 feet abyss. 10 feet is heaven and 10 feet is hell. Fang Yan said with a smile. Why did you think of having a meal here? After satisfying their material needs, people began to seek spiritual enjoyment. They sought novelty, and excitement. For example, climbing the world's highest peak, Mount Everest, which was covered in ice and snow, or crossing the Amazon, which was filled with poisonous snakes and wild beasts, or searching for gold in the desert, or exploring the South Pole, and eating the food from the East Ocean. As long as you could think of it, there was nothing they couldn't do. Fang Yan felt that today's dinner was actually an adventure. The tables and chairs were placed at the edge of the cliff. If the goblet on the table tilted a little, it could fall into the canyon and shatter into pieces. Of course, the same went for people. This was the origin of the name 10 feet abyss. A handsome waiter in a white shirt and a black waistband attentively poured red wine for the two. Qin Etian picked up the glass and gently shook it, saying, Have you ever had such a feeling? When you eat a delicious dish, a thought will emerge in your heart, I must bring him here next time. When you see a beautiful scenery, your heart will think, I must bring him here next time. When you see the best and most suitable for you, your heart will be very eager to find another person to share it with. Only in this way, that dish will have value, and that scenery will have soul. Qin Etian looked at Fang Yan and said, I discovered this restaurant 3 years ago, so I thought of bringing someone here. Fang Yan picked up the wine glass in front of him and gulped down the red wine in the glass. Qin Etian chuckled and said, You don't need to run away, and you don't need to hide anything. I didn't ask you to marry me now, did I? I won't do such a stupid thing. Fang Yan thanked the waiter, took the wine bottle from his hand, and poured himself a glass of red wine. He was not used to being served by strangers. He would stand beside you when you were eating, he would stand beside you when you were drinking, he would stand beside you when you were choking on wine or accidentally dropping a piece of pork rib on the table, he would stand beside you when you were telling a humorous or lame joke. He would even be too embarrassed to tell dirty jokes to your female companion, otherwise, he would call you a big idiot in his heart. However, if you didn't tell a dirty joke to your female companion in such a beautiful and spectacular place, you would probably blame yourself for being too stupid for many years to come. Since that was the case, Fang Yan might as well get rid of this eyesore. Having someone pour the wine for him didn't mean that he was a cut above others. He needed someone to help him count the money. I'm not running away, nor am I hiding. I'm just thinking. Although there are a lot of negative news in the education field, such as the scumbag principal who molested primary school students and the doctoral supervisor who molested female graduate students, there is still true love in the world. My student, Fang Yan, is willing to invite me to dinner and chat with me in such a beautiful and luxurious place. As an ordinary language teacher, I feel that my job is full of sacred meaning. Do you have to say such unpleasant words to change the topic? Qin Etian sipped the red wine and asked with a smile. Fang Yan looked at Qin Etian in surprise and said, You saw through me again? Then he shook his head angrily and said, You're too smart. I don't feel safe when I'm with you. Qin Etian put down the wine glass, and his dark and shining pupils were filled with Fang Yan and the thousands of rays of light behind Fang Yan. He said, Do men really like stupid girls? My mother is very smart, the smartest person in the world, but my father still likes her very much. That depends on the person, Fang Yan said. If you like someone, you won't care whether she is smart or stupid. Then, what are your criteria for choosing a partner? Fang Yan thought seriously and said, big breasts and round buttocks? Don't look, you don't fit any of them. And there may not be much room for development in the future. We're really not suitable for each other. Chapter 222. For a high school student, Qin Tian's figure was actually quite good. Slender and tall, she was in high spirits. She had the unique vigor of a young person, but also a maturity that shouldn't belong to her age. However, if she wanted to be the standard of big breasts and round buttocks that Fang Yan mentioned, she might not have the chance in this lifetime. Because her bones were thin and narrow, belonging to the slender type. Even if a peach became plump when it ripened, it could not become a fleshy bomb that people often talked about. This was determined by congenital constitution. Qin Tian looked at Fang Yan with a natural expression, not taking Fang Yan's joke about her thin figure seriously at all. She said, "You denied my present and my future. Don't you think it's cruel to do this?" Fang Yan said helplessly, "Men tell dirty jokes to women because they want to see the cute, blushing and shy look of the girl. The gentleness when she lowers her head is just like the shyness of a water lotus that can't withstand the cold wind. For women, this kind of state is the most beautiful and sexy state. You are so calm and generous, don't you think it's too disrespectful of men's labor?" A blush appeared on Qin Tian's face. Her right hand gently brushed away a strand of hair hanging down to her forehead. Her eyelashes were curved, and her eyes blinked. She looked at Fang Yan shyly and said, "Is that so? This is how a woman should behave when she hears dirty jokes." Fang Yan said with relief, "Then let's do it again." Qin Tian said, "Fang Yan, tell me another dirty joke." Seeing Fang Yan's stunned look, the two looked at each other and laughed. Fang Yan shook his head with a smile and said, "Qin Tian, most of the time, I really can't treat you as a child. If I'm not careful, I will treat you as an adult." Qin Tian glanced at Fang Yan and said, "We sat down for less than 20 minutes, and you have insulted me twice in a row. Fortunately, you are Fang Yan, who I like, or I would have kicked you into this abyss." The 10 Feet Abyss was one of the most unique restaurants in Yangcheng. Countless rich ladies, second or third generation rich second or third generation rich second or third generation rich men with deep family backgrounds would choose to dine and drink here. They were all extremely low-profile young masters who frequented high-class places and never engaged in small talk with others. How romantic was it to chat and drink with the person you loved on the edge of a precipitous cliff under the afterglow of the setting sun? Then, he took a photo and sent it to his WeChat moments. He wrote, "Sunshine and you are here. This is the future I want. I'm waiting for my best friend to praise me on the surface and curse this woman behind my back." Wu Yiwei was the manager on duty at the 10 Feet Abyss restaurant today. Because the 10 Feet Abyss restaurant was only open to members, and these members were all wealthy and respectable people, the restaurant's employees were highly capable. This was especially true for a manager on duty like her. Maintaining the relationship with the VIP customers, making them pay a hefty membership fee every year, and even ordering the most expensive Lafite was a test of one's EQ and IQ. Wu Yiwei did a great job in this aspect, and this was also the best proof of her promotion from a receptionist to a manager on duty in just 3 years. All the seats were booked, and the 10 Feet Abyss restaurant's business was booming as usual. However, this didn't mean that Wu Yiwei's work for the day was over. There were still many distinguished guests who had yet to arrive, and she had to wait at the entrance to greet them. Several luxury cars stopped at the restaurant's entrance. Wu Yiwei's eyes lit up and she quickly walked to the door of the first Bentley. She took the initiative to open the back door and said with a charming smile, "Third young master, you're finally here. I've been waiting at the entrance ever since I received your call. I was worried that I wouldn't have the chance to see third young master's elegant demeanor tonight. How regretful would that be?" Wang Lin got out of the luxury car, but he didn't hug Wu Yiwei and take advantage of her like before. Instead, he looked at her in a very gentlemanly manner and said, "I'm here to accompany a few friends for a drink and a chat. You must help me entertain them." Fear. Wu Yiwei could see a trace of fear from Zhang Lin's words and eyes. One must know that when Zhang Lin came over in the past, he would casually put his arm around her shoulder and say, "I'm here to play with a few friends. You must help me entertain them." In the past, he used the word bring. He was the leader, and those who came with him were all his subordinates. This time, he used the word accompany. He was only here to accompany them, not the real protagonist tonight. Hua Xia's writing was broad and profound, and the difference of a single word was like the difference between heaven and earth. Wu Yiwei was a graduate of ancient Chinese literature, so how could she not understand the meaning behind it? Thus, her phoenix eyes swept around and immediately recognized the real soul of this group of young masters, Lu Qingming. Lu Qingming was a member of Huaqing's Lu family and the cousin of Lu Shu, one of the four beauties of Huaqing. Because Lu Shu's previous reputation was too resounding, Lu Qingming seemed insignificant in comparison. Later on, he heard that Lu Shu had an accident and didn't appear in public for a long time. For some unknown reason, the Lu family pushed Lu Qingming out on several important occasions. Thus, Lu Qingming became a hot figure in Huaqing all of a sudden. Towards such a powerful figure, Wu Yiwei naturally paid attention to him. Of course, Wu Yiwei knew the rules. She wouldn't immediately greet and curry favor with Lu Qingming just because his background was deeper than Zhang Lin's. That would only make Lu Qingming look down on her, and similarly, make Zhang Lin feel disgusted. What she needed to do was to take care of Zhang Lin, and at the same time, greet Lu Qingming and let him know that she knew that he was an important figure. That was enough. Just as Wu Yiwei was thinking about this, a scene that surprised her appeared. After getting off the car, Lu Qingming walked to the Mercedes-Benz at the end of the line in an extremely natural manner. He very naturally helped to open the back door and invited a bespectacled man who looked refined yet very ordinary. Wu Yiwei's heart suddenly shrank. Lu Qingming was already the top young master in Huaqing Circle. Then, who was the man who took the initiative to open the door for him? "Wei Wei, is our position ready?" Zhang Lin patted Wu Yiwei's shoulder, signaling her to come back to her senses. "Third young master, everything is ready. I will accompany you," Wu Yiwei said with a charming smile. The group of people passed through the side road and walked towards the cliff on the left. There was a large protruding boulder, and the stone was simply surrounded by a railing. Then, there was a large white table and a few white round chairs on it. Obviously, that was the position that Zhang Lin had booked in advance. At this moment, Jiang Junling, who was walking in the back, suddenly stopped. Jiang Junling was the person that Lu Qingming paid attention to. Seeing his strange action, Lu Qingming, who was explaining the uniqueness of this restaurant, immediately shut his mouth and looked in the direction that he was looking at with a strange look in his eyes. It was a man and a woman. The man was handsome, and the woman had a noble and peerless temperament. Jiang Junling didn't speak, and Lu Qingming didn't ask either. He knew that Jiang Junling was a person who didn't like to talk much. And he had just replaced Lu Shu's position, so he didn't have a clear understanding of Jiang Junling's character and temper. The less he spoke, the less mistakes he would make. Since Jiang Junling and Lu Qingming stopped, the people behind them naturally stopped as well. Zhang Lin and Wu Yiwei only reacted after walking a few steps. Zhang Lin glanced at the direction that Lu Qingming was looking at and looked at Wu Yiwei. "The scenery on the other side of that table is better. I want that table." The smile on Wu Yiwei's face stiffened, but it returned to normal in an instant. She hugged Zhang Lin's arm and rubbed her plump breasts against his body. Then, she gently and meticulously explained, "Third young master, since you like that table, I will definitely prepare it for you in advance next time. I will prepare it for you whenever you want it." Zhang Lin, who used to be obedient to Wu Yiwei, suddenly became fierce and ruthless. He ignored Wu Yiwei's ambiguous attack and sneered, "I want it now. Third young master, the dishes have just been served. It's really difficult for me." Wu Yiwei smiled obsequiously and begged. "What's the background of that man and woman?" Zhang Lin asked. "It's Miss Qin who booked the table," Wu Yiwei said. "Although Miss Qin rarely eats here, she has been a 3-year senior member of the 10 Feet Abyss. I have never seen that man." "Miss Qin? Which family's Miss Qin is she from?" Zhang Lin asked again. Wu Yiwei shook her head and said, I only know that her surname is Qin, but I don't know which family she is from. Third young master, you don't know her either? It's easier to talk if you don't know her. Zhang Lin chuckled. I don't care how you do it. Immediately, chase them away. I want the table they're sitting at now. Third young master, the location of Pigeonback is actually quite good. The feng shui is excellent, and the view is wide. Look, there's a large stretch of beach right across, and the canyon is filled with smoke. Slap. Zhang Lin slapped Wu Yiwei's face and scolded, Stinking whore, do you want to die? Don't you know how much money I spent on you? I gave you face in the past, but now you're not giving me face? Third young master, it's not that I don't want to help, but our 10 feet abyss has a rule. We can't chase away other customers or force them to give up their table for no reason. If I do that, the reputation of our 10 feet abyss will be ruined. Although Wu Yiwei was slapped, she still explained in a low voice. She knew that these young masters were temperamental. When they got close to you, it was because they were pretending to be refined and refined. When you accidentally angered them and they bared their fangs at you, that was their true colors. In their eyes, they simply didn't treat a small character like her as a person. Zhang Lin looked at Wu Yiwei with a sneer and said, You don't dare, but I do. I'll go talk to them. I think they will give me Zhang Lin face. Lu Qingming stood beside Jiang Junling and whispered, Zhang Lin, the youngest son of Blue Sky Group's Zhang Qingpu, is a good dog. Chapter 223. As a good dog, it had to have the awareness to pounce and bite people for its owner. Zhang Lin was the third son of the Blue Sky Group's boss, Zhang Qingpu. The Blue Sky Group was a very famous construction company in Huaqing. 20 years ago, Zhang Qingpu was just a small labor contractor who led a dozen villagers to build houses for people. An annual income of 1,800,000 yuan was enough to satisfy him. He felt that there was no job in the world more blissful than being a labor contractor. He decided to be a contractor for the rest of his life. This was a career that could bring honor to his ancestors. Later, he had the opportunity to meet Lu Qingtian, the core figure of the Lu family. Lu Qingtian valued his ability and asked him a question. Do you want to be a big shot? Big shot? Zhang Qingpu hadn't figured out the difference between a big shot and a big shot before he nodded in a panic. He knew that this was a huge opportunity for him. Therefore, with the support of the Lu family's funds and connections, Zhang Qingpu's Zhang Qingpu construction team became the Blue Sky Company, and the Blue Sky Company became the current Blue Sky Group. Zhang Qingpu became a famous figure in the business world of Huaqing. He could make countless people look at him with a stomp of his foot. At the same time, he also became a dog under Lu Qingtian's tutelage. Like many other distinguished Shar-Pei dogs, they either guarded the door or bit people. They had a clear division of labor and would never overstep their boundaries. If someone gave you a bone, you would be their dog. Very fair. What was worse was that this relationship could be inherited from generation to generation. His father, Zhang Qingpu, was Lu Qingtian's dog, so Zhang Lin naturally became Lu Qingming's dog. It was a matter of course. Even Zhang Lin himself didn't have any objections. Zhang Lin wasn't the kind of man who would have his hormones skyrocket at the sight of a beautiful woman. Which man in their circle didn't go through hundreds of battles? Some of the less famous models or female students who didn't have a background were 10 times better than those celebrities who showed off in the media. He didn't have any ill feelings towards the young man and woman. He even felt that they looked like a perfect match. However, he didn't know why the noble from Yanjing was unhappy with them. Although he didn't show anything, although Lu Qingming didn't give him any instructions or promises, he was the one who arranged the dinner tonight. However, he was the organizer of this dinner tonight, so he had to stand up and pull a cloud to make some noise. At least, he had to give them a chance to speak and intervene. He was a dog, and a dog had to have its uses. Every family has its own difficulties. As a rich second generation with dreams and a bright future, do you think his life is easy? He hadn't seen the woman or heard of the man. Fortunately, the young man and woman were just two ordinary people. Zhang Lin walked to Fang Yan and said with a smile, "Perhaps this is a little sudden for you. But this is entirely for your own good. Give me your table. You have two choices. First, I'll get someone to arrange another table for you. Zhang Lin pointed to the sizzling steak that had just been served on the table and said, "Pack it up and leave." Zhang. Zhang as he said, Zhang and Zhang. Zhang Fang Yen, who was about to cut his steak, looked at Qin Etian with a troubled expression. Next time, can we not go to a restaurant that costs more than 100 renminbi per person? The first time I went to Sky One, someone tried to kill me. The second time, someone wanted to beat me. Zhang. Someone wants to bully me again. I often bring Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan to the small restaurant near the school gate to eat fish with pickled cabbage. The boss is very friendly to me. Everyone who sees me would respectfully address me as Fang Laosher. No one has ever asked me to pack up my table and leave. Last night, I watched a popular idol drama. At a high-class party, the second female lead felt that the first female lead didn't deserve to wear branded clothes to such a high-class party, so she splashed the first female lead's face with the red wine in her glass. Maybe they all think I don't deserve to eat at such a place? Otherwise, why would I be hated by people everywhere I go? Qin Etian didn't even want to look at Zhang Lin. He was afraid that it would affect his good mood and appetite. He swirled the wine glass in his hand and said with a smile, "You don't deserve to eat here. Who do they think they are?" Zhang Lin's eyes became vicious. He looked at Qin Etian and said, "You don't know how to cherish me when I talk nicely. When I stop talking, it will be too late for you to regret it. I'll give you 1 minute. Immediately disappear from my sight." Fang Yen patted Zhang Lin's butt and said, "All right, young man, stop messing around. Whenever there's a scene of a hooligan looking for trouble on TV, there must be an unspeakable conspiracy behind it. Do you like my female partner? Or do you like my female partner's male partner?" Zhang Lin's head turned a few times before he realized who the female partner's male partner was. His face was as ugly as pig's blood. This bastard, did he think he was gay? Zhang Lin was so angry that he laughed and said, "Looks like you don't want to give me face? I don't even know who you are. Why should I give you face?" Fang Yen asked. A big hand was placed on Fang Yan's shoulder. A black-clothed man got Zhang Lin's order and was ready to throw this arrogant little baldy into the abyss. At least he would be scared half to death. Fang Yen looked at Zhang Lin and said, "Isn't it good for everyone to eat obediently? Why do you have to make such a mess? You provoked me for no reason, and I beat you up in anger. I'm really tired of this kind of show." Zhang Lin laughed and pointed at Fang Yen and said, "This kid is really interesting. Since you're tired of the act of beating people up, why don't you try the act of being beaten up?" Zhang Lin looked at the black-clothed man and said, "Camel, I want one of his arms." A violent sneer appeared on Camel's face. When he was about to follow the order and break one of Fang Yan's arms, a tender white hand was placed on his arm. "Break?" Camel's chi sank to his danton and shouted angrily. Crick! The sound of bones breaking could be heard. However, it wasn't Fang Yan's arm that was broken, but Camel's arm that was about to break Fang Yan's arm. Just as Camel was about to exert force, a strong force suddenly attacked him. He couldn't resist. His arm tightened and loosened, and then he lost control of it. In the eyes of outsiders, they only saw Fang Yan reach out and pat his shoulder. Then Camel grunted and suffered a heavy blow. It was terrifying to break someone's arm so easily. Camel took a few steps back and looked at Fang Yan in horror while holding his broken arm. Zhang Lin also noticed this change and couldn't help but take 2 steps back. He stared at Fang Yan and said, "No wonder you dare to be so arrogant and despotic in the 10 feet abyss. It turns out that you have some skills. Listen to that, it's like bullying people. They came to make you move your table, threatened you, and used violence. In the end, when you fought back, they described you as arrogant and despotic. Well, since you said I'm arrogant and despotic, then I'll be arrogant and despotic for once." Fang Yan pushed the chair away and stood up. He walked toward Zhang Lin. Camel was worried that his young master would be injured. He reached out with his good arm and clenched his fist, smashing it heavily toward Fang Yan's face. Clang! His fist was still in the air when Fang Yan punched him in the eye socket. Thud, thud, thud. Camel's body stepped back again and again until he hit a protruding boulder. His eye socket was red and swollen, and his vision was blurred. Blood flowed out from the corner of his eye and then slid down his cheek. His appearance was horrifying to look at. Under the pain, Camel's body couldn't stand steadily. He leaned against the boulder and slowly slid down, sitting on the ground. Another slightly shorter bodyguard in black attacked Fang Yan's ribs from the side. Fang Yan turned his wrist and held his fist. With a light pull, the bodyguard in black was pulled in front of Fang Yan. Then Fang Yan punched him in the ribs under the armpit. Kachla, the sound of bones breaking sounded again. The bodyguard in black screamed and his body softly collapsed. The two bodyguards he brought were injured one after another. This was what Wang Lin didn't expect. This was a dangerous person. He could see it from the fact that Fang Yan didn't even flinch when he knocked down his two bodyguards. He finally had a clearer and direct understanding of this seemingly gentle and handsome young man. "Want to hit me? Do you know what kind of consequences this will bring to you?" Wang Lin stood there without moving. He was afraid. He wanted to turn around and run away. But he knew in his heart that once he did that, Lu Qingming and the others would kick him away like he was dog shit. Most of the time, you know what is right. But you can't do that. Fang Yan smiled and didn't answer. He walked in front of Wang Lin and stood still, waiting for him to continue. "You can knock down 2 people? What about 20? What about 200? Wang Lin thought that the threat was effective and regained some courage. "I can casually mobilize hundreds of people to besiege you. At that time, it won't be something that can be settled with just one arm." "This is your threat?" Fang Yan asked with a smile. Fang Yan grabbed Wang Lin's neck and lifted him up with one hand. Then he walked step by step to the edge of the cliff and threw his body over the railing, leaving Wang Lin's feet hanging in the air. His hair was messed up and the sound of the wind was in his ears. Below him was a 10,000 feet cliff. If he was a little careless, he would fall to his death. Wang Lin was scared. This time, he was really scared. He wanted to open his mouth to speak, but his throat was stuck by Fang Yan, so he couldn't say anything. His face turned purple and his breathing became more and more difficult. He was about to suffocate to death. Even so, he couldn't move and didn't dare to resist. Because he was worried that if he struggled a little too much, he would fall into the bottomless abyss. Fang Yan smiled sincerely and said, "You see, this is a threat. You can't even be a hoodlum, what else can you be?" Chapter 224. You can't even be a hooligan, what else can you be? Was there a more vicious humiliation than this? Although Wang Lin was very afraid of death, in that short period of 0.01 seconds, he actually had such a thought: let go and let me die. For him, this feeling was worse than death. Wang Lin's entire body fell outside the railing, hanging on the cliff. As long as Fang Yan loosened his grip, or accidentally slipped, what awaited Wang Lin would be smashed into pieces. The wind blew on his buttocks, and he was about to pee his pants. This scene was too thrilling, and everyone was dumbstruck. Wu Yiwei was scared out of her wits. She quickly ran over and reached out to grab Fang Yan's arm, shouting, let go, you'll die if you do this. Security, security, come quickly." Wang Lin had slapped her in the face, but she had also earned a lot of commission from the drinks. If Wang Lin died in front of her, she would also have to bear the responsibility. But Fang Yan reached out and threw Wang Lin back to the ground. He didn't plan to kill Wang Lin, he wasn't that stupid. Wang Lin clutched his throat and coughed violently. His face was purple and he couldn't say a word. Wu Yiwei helped him up from the ground and asked anxiously, "Third young master, how are you? Are you okay? Do you need to call a doctor?" Wang Lin's body was limp, and all his strength was drained by Fang Yan. "I don't have to give up my seat, right?" Fang Yan looked at Wang Lin and asked. Wang Lin didn't answer. He also didn't need to answer. He had fulfilled his duty, and the rest could be handed over to others. Don't bully others just because you have some stinky money. When Fang Yan walked in front of Wang Lin, he kicked his knee. "Do you think I don't have money?" When Fang Yan finished his practice and returned to his seat, Qin Etienne had already gently and carefully helped him cut the steak into small pieces. Eat it while it's hot. Qin Etienne said with a sweet smile, as if she was not worried that Fang Yen would be defeated in the battle just now. I just tasted it. It's not fishy or overripe. The taste is just right. Fang Yen forked a piece of beef into his mouth and chewed, saying, it's really not bad. Of course. This dish is their signature dish. How could the place I picked be bad? Qin Etienne said proudly. Fang Yen swallowed the beef and said, let's eat quickly. After eating, he ran away. This little bastard isn't trying to hit on you or me. There's no reason for him to bully us for no reason. There's someone behind him. I don't know why, and I don't want to know. I'll go back after dinner. Pretend that nothing happened today. What a generous man. Qin Etienne savored the beef in his mouth and said, I'm afraid you won't get what you want. Can't I not pursue the matter when they bully me? But they didn't succeed, Qin Etienne said. To them, you're bullying them if you don't let them bully you. Fang Yen felt that these young masters were too much of a bully. Everything that happened on the cliff was seen by a group of people not far away. Jiang Junling turned to look at a skinny middle-aged man behind him and asked, Mr. Bao, are you confused? Mr. Bao shook his head and said, I know when to advance and when to retreat. I showed mercy. I'm not confused. Then go help him, Jiang Junling said. Mr. Bao did not say a word. He lifted his small feet wrapped in black cloth shoes and walked in the direction of Fang Yen. Mr. Bao stood in front of Fang Yen and looked at him with a gentle expression. Fang Yen also noticed Mr. Bao and his expression became serious. Fang Yen pointed at Wang Lin on the ground and said, You're together? Mr. Bao shook his head. Who was Wang Lin to be with them? So, you're like him, bullying me because you don't like me? Fang Yen slowly moved to Qin Etienne's side and used his body to block in front of her. It was romantic to eat in the Zhang abyss, but it was dangerous to fight. If he was not careful, he could easily push someone off a cliff and fall to his death. Fang Yen was afraid that Qin Etienne would be implicated if he got into a fight. Bully? Mr. Bao was stunned. He laughed, and the thin layer of skin on his face piled up together, making him look like a crumpled soup bun. In a martial arts competition, the winner is the hero and the loser is the bandit. How is this bullying? Martial arts competition? That's exactly what I'm here for. Fang Yen waved his hand and said, I'm sorry, I'm not competing. As you can see, my student has already cut the beef for me. I'll be old if I don't eat it now. Half an hour is enough, Mr. Bao said confidently. He was confident that he could finish the battle in half an hour, or rather, finish off Fang Yen. Fang Yen looked at Mr. Bao thoughtfully and asked, Must you compete with me? That's why, Mr. Bao repeated. Fang Yen frowned and asked, Why? To defeat you, Mr. Bao said proudly. He was short, but he gave off an arrogant aura that looked down on the heavens. I'm not obliged to fulfill your wish, Fang Yen said. Why should I let you beat me just because you want to? It's not up to you. Before he finished his sentence, Mr. Bao clawed at Fang Yen with one hand. His figure flickered and the claw turned into thousands of illusions. Body clone technique. Xingyi Fist's eagle claw became shadowless claw due to Mr. Bao's speed. Xingyi Fist was derived from heart and mind fist. Shape and mind followed the heart and could be controlled as one pleased. Ever-changing and controlled by the heart. A single leaf knows the autumn, and a single clue reveals the general trend. With just one claw, Fang Yen already knew that Mr. Bao was a rare opponent. Putting everything else aside, his palm-will fist had already reached a level where he could do as he pleased. You're going too far. Fang Yen was furious. It was just a meal. Was there a need to provoke him again and again? Fang Yen clenched his fist and punched through the illusions towards Mr. Bao's wrist. Bang! Like a fierce tiger, the illusion was destroyed. Shape and mind followed the heart. Just as his wrist was about to be hit by Fang Yan's fist, the eagle claw turned into a tiger fist and charged straight at Fang Yan's fist. Fist against fist, flesh against flesh. The two men's fists collided head-on. Silence. A deathly silence. The sound of something exploding could be heard and a strong cyclone was sent flying back. Pa pa pa. Mr. Bao took 3 steps back. Every step was as strenuous as smashing a stone. Chi, the round-mouthed cloth shoes and the stones on the ground created a violent friction. When he stopped, the soles of the cloth shoes had already disappeared. His inner force was channeled and the cloth shoes could not withstand the force. The sole of the cloth shoes was burnt to ashes. Fang Yen sat on the spot without moving, but the wooden chair he was sitting on was destroyed. The 4 legs of the chair broke and collapsed. The bare cover of the chair fell to the ground. Fang Yen could no longer maintain his sitting posture. He stood up straight and glared at Mr. Bao. I used White Hand to repel the tiger and you used Evil Tiger to dig out the heart? Fang Yen said coldly. White Hand was also known as Snatching Hand. It was a hand-to-hand combat technique. Repelling the tiger was to let the opponent know when to retreat. It was not a killing move that could injure or kill. However, Mr. Bao used Evil Tiger to dig out the heart. With one hand, he attacked Fang Yan's fist to lure him in while his other hand went for Fang Yan's heart. If not for Fang Yan's Tai Chi stickiness, Mr. Bao's tiger claw would have pierced through Fang Yan's chest and dug out Fang Yan's heart. Mr. Bao smiled without saying a word. Deep down, he was shocked. Everything he had learned in Xing-Yi was to play the chicken like a chicken and the tiger like a tiger. Bend down like a chicken and stand up like a tiger. Dispel the chi and dig out the heart. This series of killer moves had always been successful. Countless experts and generals had fallen under his hands. He did not expect Fang Yen to resolve it so easily and force him to take 3 steps back. The fist was afraid of the young man. The young man's inner force was as powerful as the Yangtze River. Mr. Bao had cultivated chi all his life, but he could not shake the young man. You want to kill me? Fang Yen asked. Of course, I want to kill you, Mr. Bao said. Fang Yan's face darkened. If it was just a sparring match, he could use all his strength without using his killing intent. But if it was to kill someone, then Fang Yen would not sit still. He was afraid of death, so he hated those who wanted to take his life. Since when did Grandmaster Bao Shi become someone else's watchdog? Fang Yen stared at Mr. Bao and asked. Bao Shi raised his eyebrows and asked, You know me? There are 2 masters in Xing-Yi, Southern Dragon and Northern Phoenix. To be able to practice form and will martial arts to this level, I'm afraid only Grandmaster Bao Shi can do it, Fang Yen said sarcastically. It must be very embarrassing for a Grandmaster to be seen through and become someone's dog, right? Bao Shi chuckled and said, I found another reason to kill you. When Fang Yen and Mr. Bao were sparring, a man in black came behind Qin Etian and reached out to grab her shoulder. Qin Etian, who was cutting the steak with a knife, suddenly turned around and stabbed the knife into the back of the man's furry hand. Crack! The sharp blade went through the man's hand. The man staggered back and screamed in pain. Blood flowed out and a strong smell of blood filled the air. Everyone stared at this scene with their eyes wide open, looking at the girl who was smiling sweetly as she lifted the hem of her red dress and bowed slightly to the surrounding audience. Qin sat down again and shouted, Waiter, another 12 knives and forks. Chapter 225. No one dared to give Qin Etian 12 sets of knives and forks. When there was only 1 set of knives and forks, she used that knife to pierce the palm of a burly man. If he gave her 12 sets of knives and forks, do you think other people are stupid? Who would be willing to let you play a piercing game with their palm? The knife was still inserted into the back of his hand, and the blade came out of his palm. The blood flowed rapidly and soon, the black-clothed man's white shirt was dyed red. He covered his palm and howled. His body was trembling in pain, and his eyes were filled with hatred and fear when he looked at Qin Etian. He swore on his character and his first love that this girl was the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. However, why was she so fierce and cruel when she attacked? Wu Yiwei was also stunned. What was going on tonight? What kind of monsters were they? When Qin Etian came, she was responsible for receiving him. When she saw Qin Etian, she was stunned. At that time, she secretly compared the 2 of them in all aspects. Whether it was appearance, temperament, or aura, the other party was several streets ahead of her. Fortunately, her chest was full, and it made her regain a little confidence as a woman. 3 taels of meat on the chest was worth 100,000 gold. This was very reasonable. In her eyes, this girl, who was so beautiful and charming, had pierced through someone's palm with a knife, and then smiled indifferently and shouted for another 12 knives and forks to be served. Beheading someone while talking and laughing, this was probably the kind of person who could do that. Jiang Junling slightly frowned. He turned to look at Lu Qingming and asked, "Who is that idiot's man?" Lu Qingming didn't know why Jiang Junling was angry, so he quickly explained, "He might be Zhang Lin's man. I saw him get out of Zhang Lin's car. He saw that Zhang Lin was being bullied and insulted by that guy, so he wanted to catch that girl to threaten him." The girl? Seeing Jiang Junling's gentle eyes looking at the girl, Lu Qingming chuckled and said, "Quite a character." "Just character?" Jiang Junling had a meaningful smile on his face. "If that's the case, can she live up to Qin Yitian's words?" Qin Yitian? Lu Qingming's expression froze. Qin Yitian of the Qin family? Perhaps his severely injured and disfigured brother, Lu Shu, knew more, but this didn't prevent Lu Qingming from knowing some secrets of that level from his own network and circle of friends. The son should be like Jiang Junling, and the adopted daughter must be like Qin Yitian. The comment of the Tao addict, song transplanting seedlings, who was known as the #1 physiognomist since ancient and modern times, had pushed the two of them to the front of the stage, attracting countless eyes and attacks of jealousy. However, this also proved that the two of them were indeed first-rate young talents. Jiang Junling is the Jiang Junling in front of me, and Qin Yitian is the beautiful woman with a calm posture and a smile on her face at the edge of the cliff? Wasn't she still a child? Could it be that the rumors were wrong? Qin Yitian of the Qin family, Jiang Junling said. "What? Do you regret it?" If possible, who would want to provoke the Qin family for no reason? Lu Qingming thought in his heart. However, he couldn't say such words, at least not in front of the man in front of him. He looked at Jiang Junling firmly and said, "Young master, do you want me to have a try?" He was willing to use his actions to prove that he was firmly on the side of Jiang Junling. This was something that was destined a long time ago. Changing one's ways was like betrayal. For these big families, betrayal was a very shameful thing. They would crush it into mud by hook or by crook. "No need," Jiang Junling said in a flat voice. "She is my friend." Lu Qingming didn't understand. Since they were friends, why did he send his ace bodyguard, Grandmaster Baoshi, to challenge them? Grandmaster Baoshi, the king of Xingyi, was a master of internal martial arts. He was known as the most loyal person after Yu Wumu, the founder of Xingyi martial arts. The style of Xingyi martial arts was to fight hard, almost like lightning and thunder. Baoshi was a violent person, and countless masters had died in his hands. Moreover, the losers were either dead or injured, and few people could pick up their skills again. A few years ago, he fought with the nation master Li Zonghao in Yanjing and disappeared miraculously. Everyone thought that Baoshi was defeated by Li Zonghao and had no face to come out again. Unexpectedly, Lu Qingming saw his real body in Huaqing this time. And he lost his identity as a grandmaster of Xingyi martial arts and became a bodyguard of Jiang Junling under the alias Mr. Bao. As if he had seen through Lu Qingming's thoughts, Jiang Junling looked at Fang Yan sharply and said, "He is not. He was not a friend, so he fought with him." Was this the logic of Jiang Junling's behavior? Jiang Junling was arrogant, and Baoshi was even more arrogant. Because of Fang Yan's question that a grandmaster became a dog for others, this became one of the reasons why Baoshi wanted to kill Fang Yan. Baoshi looked at Fang Yan coldly and said, "You are so young, but your cultivation is extraordinary. Today, let me have a good taste of your supernatural power. A young hero is bound to be praised by others. What I like to do most is to kill miracles." He clenched his fists and his knuckles cracked. His figure turned into a blur, and the entire spine of his body began to make crackling noises. His eyes were wide open, and his mouth was tightly closed. The two sides of his cheeks were originally dry, but at this moment, They suddenly bulged, like a frog holding its breath. The wrinkles on his forehead were faintly discernible. 2 horizontal lines and 1 vertical line formed a clear, dry character. However, with Fang Yan's eyesight and knowledge, he knew that this character was not the dry character, but the king character. The king character on the tiger's forehead. Fang Yan was shocked. Someone had mastered the supreme realm of Xing Yi Quan, the battle of dragons and tigers? His body was like a dragon, and his face was like a tiger. If the last horizontal line was added, then Bao Shi would have the power of a tiger and a dragon. He could rise like the wind, fall like an arrow, split mountains and cut stones, and cut off the heads of thousands of soldiers and horses. A master? This was a real master. Fang Yan felt the danger. It was as if every inch of his skin, every piece of flesh, and every hair on his body was coveted, and he could face a fatal blow at any time. Fang Yan touched the ground with the tip of his left foot, and gently lifted his right foot to draw a circle in the air. Whoosh! Bao Shi's figure disappeared on the spot, and like a miracle, he appeared in front of Fang Yan at the same time. A dragon soared in the 9 heavens, and a leap of 100,000 miles. Bao Shi's speed was so fast that it gave people a false impression. His upper body rushed to the front of Fang Yan, but his legs were still standing in the original position. His body was split in half by time and space. Roar! He opened his mouth and roared like a tiger. Boom! He punched at Fang Yan's head. It was a straightforward attack. There was no feint and no disguise. The punch was fierce and powerful. He fought with his life and cheered with his qi. He was going to use the tough style of Xingyi boxing to attack Fang Yan and take his life. Before the punch arrived, it was already powerful enough to hurt. Fang Yan's face was burning with pain, as if someone was slapping him hard in the face. Just the wind of the punch could hurt people. If the punch hit, there was no doubt that Fang Yan's head would be smashed like a watermelon being hit by a hammer. Fang Yan stood on 1 foot. When Bao Shi's heavy punch came, his toes were shaking, as if he could not stand steadily. Like a willow catkin in the wind, like snow in the wind, like a circle. He handed his body over to Bao Shi. Swoosh! The heavy punch passed through the side of Fang Yan's face, but Bao Shi's body fiercely hit Fang Yan's body. Top martial artists could hurt people with flying flowers and leaves, let alone his body that had been tempered 100 times. Fang Yan's feet swayed again, and his body rotated with it. The foot that was raised in the air kept drawing circles. The body was the boat, and the feet were like oars that kept correcting the direction of the boat in the sea. No matter how strong he was, the breeze caressed the hill. No matter how strong he was, the bright moon shone on the river. This was the general principle of Tai Chi, the supreme essence of using soft to defeat hard. Soft Tai Chi, the power of 4 tails of gold. Bao Shi's short body passed through Fang Yan's side, and the two brushed past each other. He opened his mouth and roared again. Before he could turn around, he had already used his elbow to hit Fang Yan's heart, head, face, and other vital parts. Deflate his qi and borrow his strength. Fang Yan did not dodge this time. His palm was like a knife, cutting toward Bao Shi's back as fast as a gust of wind. "You've been tricked," Bao Shi shouted coldly, and the killing intent in his eyes skyrocketed. His arms suddenly stretched out and blasted toward Fang Yan's chest at a speed many times faster than before. This was the real speed of a divine dragon, and this was the real power of the Tiger King. The roar of a tiger and the roar of a dragon. It possessed unfathomable speed and unparalleled strength. It could destroy the heavens and extinguish the earth, and it was extremely lethal. Fang Yan's feet landed on the ground, and his body took a step forward. He slapped Bao Shi's face and pressed down on Bao Shi's head, who was rushing toward him. Bao Shi's violent body stopped instantly, and Bao Shi's fist couldn't reach him no matter how hard he tried. Because he was short, his arms were naturally not as slender as Fang Yan's arms. Fang Yan could press down on his face, but he couldn't dig out Fang Yan's heart. It was like a giant pressing down on a dwarf's head, and the dwarf's punches and kicks couldn't touch the giant's skin. Bao Shi punched, and Fang Yan punched him in the arm. Bao Shi kicked, and Fang Yen kicked him in the joint. As soon as he made a move, Fang Yen blocked all his ways out. Thus, a hilarious scene unfolded before everyone's eyes. The Xingyi master Bao Shi's face was squeezed into a bun by Fang Yen for a while, and then his face was squeezed into a dumpling by Fang Yen. Then he was twisted into Garfield, Mickey Mouse, and Little Frog by Fang Yen. Fang Yan's fingers kept flicking as he looked at Bao Shi and asked, "Do your parents know that you're so cute?" Chapter 226. When the emperor was angry, corpses would be everywhere. When a grandmaster was angry, he would howl like a wolf and cry like a ghost. Bao Shi was really annoyed by Fang Yan's words. "You can say that I have the demeanor of an expert. You can say that I have an extraordinary temperament. You can say that I am heroic, elegant, romantic, and beautiful like a fairy. You can say that I have a more masculine personality, and I can barely accept it. But what do you mean by saying that I am cute? I am a grandmaster, the king of Xingyi. Isn't it insulting to say that I am cute?" Roar. With a roar, Bao Shi's head slammed toward Fang Yen. He clenched his fists and punched at Fang Yan's arm that was pressing his head at the same time. Fang Yen stopped and attacked again. His arm was still pressed on Bao Shi's head, so that Bao Shi could not hit him. However, Bao Shi's fists instantly missed. Again missed. Again missed. No matter how Bao Shi attacked, Fang Yen was able to dodge in advance, and his big hand pressed on Bao Shi's face like a shadow. It was as if Bao Shi had been sucked in. "If I don't let go of the Tai Chi sticking formula, no one can save me." Bao Shi looked up at Fang Yen, his face purple and his eyes wide open. "What kind of hero is that? Do you dare to exchange 3 punches with me fair and square? What kind of hero is he to be evasive?" Fang Yen thought about it seriously. "Heroes have always been evasive when they fought with me." Slap. Fang Yen slapped Bao Shi in the face. Slap. Fang Yen slapped Bao Shi in the face again. Slap. Fang Yen slapped Bao Shi in the face for the 3rd time. After the 3 slaps, Fang Yen took 2 steps back, looked at Bao Shi and said, "I dare to slap you 3 times. Tai Chi is about conquering strength with softness. What do you mean by asking me to punch you? You wouldn't have agreed if I had asked you to compete with me in tongue twisters when you were beating people up just now, right?" What Fang Yen hated the most was this kind of self-righteous idiot. Everything had to be done according to his ideas. If anything went wrong, it would prove that he was a shameless scoundrel. Damn it. Bao Shi was about to go crazy. All the humiliation he had suffered in the first half of his life couldn't compare to the humiliation he had received today. His body began to run like a wild horse. "Tiger!" He threw a punch at Fang Yan's chest. Fang Yen stood still and punched out at the same time. Bao Shi's body flew backward, knocking down countless stone tables and wooden chairs. The sound of cracking was endless. Wherever Bao Shi went, it was as if he had experienced a violent typhoon. A smooth path appeared and the tables and chairs were completely cleared by Bao Shi's body. Bao Shi got up and charged at Fang Yen again, throwing another powerful punch. Fang Yen took a step forward and punched again. Their fists collided again. Bao Shi was punched away by Fang Yen again. His body hit the railing of the restaurant and the whole restaurant began to shake. Exclamations and screams came one after another. The guests of the restaurant who had come to watch the fun couldn't care less about etiquette when their lives were threatened. They covered their heads and ran outside. Bao Shi got up again. His clothes were ragged, like a beggar on a bridge. Blood spilled from the corner of his mouth, but he was seriously injured but not dead. Bao Shi took out a handkerchief from his pocket and carefully wiped the blood stains on the corner of his mouth. Then he rolled up the blood-stained handkerchief and carefully put it in his pocket. Bao Shi looked at Fang Yen with blood-red eyes and said, "We have fought 116 times, won 110 times, lost 3 times and drew 3 times. You are the first person to make me bleed." Fang Yen looked at him sarcastically and said, "Even if I am the first man to make you bleed, do you want me to be responsible for you? You have a sharp tongue. Then tell me, do you feel a little uncomfortable after hearing these words?" Uncomfortable. It's very uncomfortable. Bao Shi said very frankly. Fang Yan's words were not malicious, but every word made Bao Shi feel suffocated. The suffocation increased exponentially, and finally the quantitative change produced a qualitative change, making him feel like his body was about to explode. Bao Shi knew that he had lost. Originally, he came up to disturb Bao Shi's mind, but he didn't expect that his mind would be disturbed first. So, please be sure to take another punch from me. Fang Yan's eyes were slightly cold as he stood there and waited quietly. Bao Shi let out a deep breath and slowly raised his hands. He carefully and reluctantly clenched them into fists as if he was holding a handful of glass shards in his palms. The skin on the back of Bao Shi's hands became fiery red as if they were about to burn. Because the internal energy was too turbulent and leaked out too fast, it caused the skin to change color. Bao Shi had been practicing hard for decades, so his internal energy was indeed majestic and vigorous. Ha! Bao Shi roared and rushed toward Fang Yan again. Fang Yan moved. His body was like a divine dragon, and he rushed toward Bao Shi with one hand clenched into a fist. Whoosh! The fists collided, but there was no sound of explosion. Bao Shi's punch with all his strength seemed to have hit cotton, which made him feel suffocated. Right at this moment, an irresistible force surged forth, colliding with his fist before he could use up his old strength and generate a new one. Boom! Bao Shi's body flew out for the third time. Fang Yan pointed his toes and quickly chased after him. Clang! Bao Shi's back hit the decorative rockery in the corner of the restaurant. The rockery trembled, and stones of all sizes fell off. His body hit the rockery and made a chevron-shaped dent, and his body was tightly attached to the dent. From a distance, it looked like a carved big character. Pa! Fang Yan landed on his feet and reached out to grab Bao Shi's throat. You win! Bao Shi vomited a mouthful of blood and looked at Fang Yan. Fang Yan exerted a little force with his right hand, making it more difficult for Bao Shi to speak. I'm convinced, Bao Shi said, resigned to his fate. Let's do it. Behind Jiang Junling, a man wearing sunglasses and holding a bamboo stick was about to rush to save Bao Shi. Let him kill him. Jiang Junling felt the movement behind him and said lightly. Everyone was shocked. Lu Qingming tried not to look at Jiang Junling's eyes, and his eyes never moved away from Fang Yan. Fang Yan's anger rose wildly, and his hand that was grabbing Bao Shi's throat trembled slightly. He was very angry. He wanted to kill. He wanted to erase all these despicable and shameless people from the earth. Everyone was waiting for him to forcefully twist Bao Shi's head. The atmosphere was strange, and the entire restaurant was so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. Fang Yan could hear his rapid heartbeat, and he could see his blood that was about to boil. His heart was about to jump out of his chest, and his blood was about to burst out of his blood vessels. All of a sudden, Fang Yan grinned. He let go of Bao Shi's throat, patted the dust off Bao Shi, and said with a smile, Teacher Bao, are you okay? Pluck. Bao Shi's eyes darkened, and he couldn't hold on any longer. His body softly collapsed to the ground. Some people were relieved, and some people sighed with regret. Jiang Junling pulled a chair and sat opposite Qin Yitian. He looked at her with gentle eyes and said, 3 years ago, we found this 10-feet abyss together. It was my first time here, and it was your first time here. Qin Yitian played with the fork in her hand and didn't speak. It was your birthday that day, and we opened a bottle of red wine. You were underage, so you drank a glass. I drank the remaining half of the bottle. Qin Yin still didn't speak, like a playful child playing with a toy in his hand. The wine tasted good, and we were in a good mood. You said you would bring a special person? I've been waiting. I'm really curious, wondering what kind of person you would bring. 3 years have passed, and your birthday has come again. I've also seen the person you brought. Jiang Junling waved his hand, and Lu Qingming immediately took a goblet from the next table for him. Jiang Junling poured himself a glass of red wine from the bottle, and then raised it to Qin Yitian, saying, Happy birthday. Qin Yitian chuckled. Her smile was bright, but not brilliant, like the red and white nameless flowers all over the 10-feet mountain. She looked up at Jiang Junling and said, "That idiot who came to ask me to give up my seat is your man? My man isn't that stupid. The guy who was sent flying by Fang Yen is your man. It's a bit embarrassing to say. My expectations of him were too high." Jiang Junling, do you think this is meaningful? Qin Yiqian looked at Jiang Junling and asked. Jiang Junling tapped his fingers on the table and said, "This is the restaurant we came to together, yes. Although I didn't say it frankly, I came to Huaqing to celebrate your birthday. This is what everyone wants to see. The people of Yanjing are all watching, many people are watching. I understand. Now you can understand my feelings, right?" Jiang Junling had a matter-of-fact expression and said in a gentle voice, "Sitting in the restaurant we found together and celebrating your birthday with another man, this kind of feeling is really uncomfortable. So, you've ruined all my efforts and emotions today?" Jiang Junling flicked the glass in his hand with his finger and said, "I'm raising my glass to wish you a happy birthday." Qin Yiqian said with a smile and looked at Jiang Junling without saying anything. 3. Jiang Junling said. 2. Jiang Junling said aloud. "What are you counting?" Qin Yiqian asked. As she spoke, she had already raised her fork and was going to stab Jiang Junling's eyes. Clang. Jiang Junling raised his arm and just happened to use the glass in his hand to block Qin Yiqian's stabbing fork. Jiang Junling looked at Qin Yiqian and said, "I'm counting the time you stab me. Sometimes I really hope I'm wrong, then I won't be so sad." Chapter 227. The fork was pressed against the glass, unable to move an inch. Presumably, the stingy Jiang Junling didn't want to be stabbed, so Qin Yiqian didn't force him. He tapped the glass in Jiang Junling's hand with the sharp teeth of the fork, like a child playing house, and said, "You really know me. Many people say that. We are bosom friends," Jiang Junling said. "If this counts as bosom friends, then there are so many bosom friends in the world for you. Isn't it tiring to use mathematics and logical reasoning to guess people's minds? What about you?" Jiang Junling looked at Qin Yiqian calmly. Words and deeds? Manners? If a person wants to understand another person, he has to look at the person's appearance, listen to the person's words, and observe the person's behavior. A decent appearance doesn't mean a decent person, but a fair way of doing things must be full of justice. Qin Yiqian's little face was full of smiles, and he said, "You praised Fang Yen in front of me, which made me very happy. Jiang Junling, in fact, you are very good at making girls happy. Yes, that's it. Praise the person she likes the most and the thing she cares about the most." Jiang Junling acted as if he didn't hear Qin Yiqian's nonsense, and he said, "The so-called mind reading is nothing more than thinking and deducing from these aspects to get the answer you want. The difference is that my method is more advanced than yours. Why try to understand everyone? That's the only way to cater to their interests," Jiang Junling said with a smile. "Or in other words, to kill their weakness. That's why there are Xingyi masters like Baoshi are working for you. The sparring is over, and the dust has settled. Mentioning him at this time is always something that will spoil my appetite," Jiang Junling said. "I supported him, but I couldn't even do such a simple thing well. Incompetence is also a kind of betrayal. This knife was stabbed in the most vital place. You let him kill Fang Yen? You can also be killed," Jiang Junling said. "I focus on the result, and I don't care how the process changes. Whether he kills Fang Yen or Fang Yen kills him, it makes no difference to me. At the very least, the guy who replaced me to sit in front of you and drink red wine with you on your birthday will completely disappear from my sight. When the world is peaceful, I won't be sulking in my heart like I am now and pretend that nothing has happened. Qin Yiqian, you know me. You know how much I hate to hide. The world is too hypocritical. Wouldn't it be better to have more truth?" "Jiang Junling, you are frightening," Qin Yiqian said. "Selfish, indifferent and narrow-minded, treating human life like grass. You don't care for flowers and plants, you have no sunshine in your heart. Being with someone like you is like living in a dark and damp room filled with cockroaches and mold. It gives me goosebumps all over my body and makes me want to run away every second." Qin Tian looked at the General Ling with sincerity in her eyes. We've known each other for so many years. I'd advise you to change this habit of yours. Think about it. If you were to marry someone else, that woman would want to run out and make you a cuckold, wouldn't she? What if that woman is you? Jiang Junling asked. I will too. Qin Etienne said with absolute certainty and straightforwardness. Of course I will. Most women don't dare. Even if they want to do it, they can't do it. Because if they dare to do it, her parents, siblings, and the people closest to her will be buried with her stupidity. Jiang Junling smiled gently as if he was talking about something that had nothing to do with him. Of course, she will still be alive and well, living in my love. Everyone thinks that we should be the model of a loving husband and wife. Jiang Junling gently took a sip of the fully fermented red wine in the glass and said, Don't all the big shots that you know, I know, and we know all do the same? This kind of thing must be quite ridiculous in their eyes, right? Li Shimin killed his brother, son, and daughter and still achieved the hegemony of an eternal emperor. So, for men, it's good to see first and then look at character. A king without character is always better than 10,000 hoodlums with character, isn't it? From a woman's point of view, she naturally wants a hoodlum with character, not a king without character. Qin Etienne retorted. Jiang Junling laughed and said, Qin Etienne, why do you lie to yourself? You're not saying this from a woman's point of view, you're saying this from your own point of view. You don't have to worry about food and clothing, and you're rich enough to rival a country, so you're still longing for that non-existent love. But for most women in the world, if they want to be free of food and clothing, if they want to be rich enough to rival a country, then there's only one way for them to go, to marry a king. Whether that king is a wise ruler or Zhou of Shang or Sui Yang, why would they care about this? If you want to wear the crown, you must bear its weight. As long as you can wear the crown, who cares about that insignificant weight? Qin Etienne thought about it and really couldn't refute Jiang Junling's words. I'd rather sit in a BMW and cry than sit on the back of a bicycle and laugh. This sentence had become the standard and value of life for most women, and any refutation was weak and powerless. Jiang Junling looked at Qin Etienne and said, You see, I'm not an exception. I'm just the same as them. My father treats my mother differently. Qin Etienne finally found a breakthrough point. If a man can't give a woman happiness, then why doesn't the woman find a dog? Jiang Junling looked at Qin Etienne and said, Are we discussing such a boring topic as what kind of man is a good husband? Of course not, Qin Etienne said. I'm just trying to tell you what kind of man Qin Etienne likes. For example? Jiang Junling asked. Qin Etienne pointed to Fang Yan not far away and said, Right there. He's cute and childish. Sometimes he says some idiotic words and does some childish things. Fang Yan was so angry that he wanted to jump. When did I say idiotic words? When did I do childish things? He stared fiercely at the old man in sunglasses in front of him and said, If you don't move that broken bamboo pole in front of me, I won't be polite to you. The old man in sunglasses didn't move and said, You can try. Old man, even if you're blind, you can't be deaf, right? I just knocked down an arrogant Xingyi master. I don't mind making you the second. Stepping on the Dragon Tiger Palace, a plum blossom print. Fang's plum blossom pole has reached perfection. You should be the successor of Fang's Tai Chi, right? Fang boy, I'm old friends with your grandfather, so I don't recommend you to take the risk, the old man in sunglasses said in a hoarse voice. It was as if he had a mouthful of sand in his mouth, and every word he said was like chewing sand. It's because you just knocked down Baoshi, or that your muscles are tired, your qi and blood are unstable, and your internal organs are injured. If you act rashly again, it'll be difficult to win. You know my grandfather? Fang Yan stared at the old man with his eyes wide open. You can go back and ask if the Fang old man knows his old friend, the fisherman, the hanged ghost fisherman? Fang Yan was shocked. This old man who wore sunglasses and held a small bamboo pole was the hanged ghost who had been famous for decades. He was holding a small bamboo pole and could not help but throw coins at him as soon as he opened his mouth to sing Falling Lotus Flower. Fang Yan felt his blood boil, and he was furious. However, his head was suddenly splashed with ice water, and he instantly calmed down. That Jiang Junling? What kind of person is he? Why are all the people following behind him such monsters? The fisherman's dark face turned even darker, and his glasses were about to fall off. He snorted and said, "Fang boy, do you think you can call me hanged ghost?" I'm sorry. Fang Yen quickly apologized and said, "Grandpa Fisherman, since you're my grandfather's good friend, according to seniority, you're my grandfather. You have eyes, but you don't know your grandfather. You deserve to die. However, no matter how I die, I can't be bullied to death. Grandpa Fisherman, am I right?" Fang Yen pointed at Jiang Junling, who was sitting on the table, and said, "That boy has bullied me time and time again. Let's work together and kill him. What do you think? As long as you're on my side, the others behind him won't be a match for us." "Grandpa Fisherman, what's wrong? You look very agitated. Does this mean you're agreeing?" The fisherman's hand that was holding the small bamboo pole was trembling slightly. This was an extremely rare sight for a peerless expert. He resisted the urge to beat Fang Yen to death and said, "Boy, if you don't want me to hang you to death now, then shut your mouth." Fang Yen was furious and scolded loudly, "You old man, you just said that you're my grandfather's old friend of many years. My grandfather is known as Mengchang of the Fang family. He's a hero of his generation and has friends all over the world. How can he have such a heartless and shameless friend like you? I'm not borrowing money from you, and I'm not marrying your granddaughter. I just want you to work together with me to beat up a bastard. You're not even willing to help with such a small matter? In the martial world, righteousness is the most important thing. You're acting like a tiger and bullying a friend's descendant. You must have forgotten how to write the word righteousness, right? I'm a language teacher. If you don't know how to write it, then I'll tell you right now. When two people cross each other, the point in the middle is the heart. Touch it, where's your heart? Where's your heart?" The fisherman's hand trembled even more and he said, "Don't speak, please don't speak again." Chapter 228. The Hanged Ghost Fisherman. From his name, one could tell that he was a tranquil, gentle, cold, and patient ghost with the spirit of Jiang Taigong. However, this ghost had been angered by Fang Yen to the point where he wanted to chop this kid down with a rod or hang him on a hook. To think that my old friend was a hero of his generation. People called him Mengcheng of the Fang family. How could he have such a descendant? How sad was the Fang family? How unfortunate was his old friend? "You won't even let me speak?" Fang Yen sneered. "Guilty conscience. Hasn't it been like this since ancient times? Do you think that if you shut my mouth, you can shut the mouths of all the heroes in the world? In the future, when my grandfather and his old friends gather, they will casually mention this. That hanged ghost fisherman is old and can't even keep his integrity. He practiced martial arts all his life, but in the end, he became a cart driver for an idiot. What do you think this is?" "Don't be angry. I didn't say this. I said it in my grandfather's tone. Practicing martial arts is like studying. Who doesn't want their name to be passed down through the ages? Some people will be passed down through the ages with good names, while some will be passed down through the ages with bad names. Which one will you be?" Fang Yen tried to persuade the fisherman. "Grandpa Fisherman, you are my grandfather's best friend and my elder. A prodigal son is worth 1,000 gold. For you to be able to turn back at such an old age, even a mountain of gold and silver can't be exchanged for that. As long as you promise me that you will fight with me and throw that idiot Jiang Junling into this abyss, I will pretend that I never saw you tonight. If my grandfather asks, I will say that you are a first-class hero. What do you think?" Fang Yen did not give up and wanted to save him again. Having an old man at home was like having a treasure. This little old man with such good martial arts was also his grandfather's good friend. If he was sent to the Thousand Leaves army, that old monster would definitely like him very much, right? The so-called duel between the strong was this kind of expert against an expert. Fang Yen felt that he was not qualified at all and was not worthy of their pretentiousness. "You inexperienced child. You little brat." The fisherman clenched the bamboo pole in his hand so hard that it made cracking sounds. A man's promise is worth 10,000 gold. This is what I owe him. Unless I die, don't even think about walking past me. You are hopeless. Fang Yan looked at the fisherman and sighed. While the fisherman was being attacked by Fang Yan's words and was on the verge of collapsing, Qin Yitian was praising Fang Yan endlessly. But he was kind at heart. Every word he said came from his heart, and he strived to be fair and just in everything he did. Women had to take on two extremely important roles in their lives, wife and mother. When a woman married a man, regardless of whether she had children or not, she would immediately enter into these two roles. Which wife didn't want their husband to be humorous and funny, to say and do things that made her feel better? Which mother doesn't want their child to have a childlike heart, 20% kindness, 30% health, and 45% talent? He was knowledgeable and familiar with the classics. He was skilled, and even the Xingyi master Baoshi was no match for him. He would bring his students to study in Keihe, and he would accompany his students to learn alley in the rain, in the alley in the rain. He was gentle and refined, but also sharp and unkind. Jiang Junling's hand holding the glass trembled slightly. Did the kind of man she was talking about really exist in this world? He didn't know if such a man existed, but he knew that it was definitely not the guy behind him. He was despicable, and he held a long sword in his hand. Being despicable was a mockery of life and a carefree attitude. The sword was responsibility and protection, as well as hot-bloodedness and friendship. He could bend his body, but he could also stand tall. He wasn't sunlight, but when you saw him, it was like seeing sunlight. He wasn't dew, but he had the romance of rain and the feelings of dew. He was a human, a living human. He wasn't an animal without emotions and kindness. This is the kind of man I like. This is the reason why you brought him here. Isn't it enough? To be able to receive such high praise from Qin Yitian, this man is really lucky. No, I'm the lucky one, Qin Yitian said. I met him. He's not married, and I'm not married either. How lucky is this? Of course, I'm still working hard. I believe that he can't escape from the palm of my hand. It's a wonderful feeling to hear a little girl praise another man, Jiang Junling said. This must be the most uncomfortable thing in the world, right? Qin Yitian shook his head. There's something even more uncomfortable. What? There was a muffled sound under the table. Then, Jiang Junling's expression changed drastically. His calm and gentle expression finally disappeared. The skin and flesh on his face twisted together, almost turning into a wild chrysanthemum. Look, you're even more uncomfortable now than before, aren't you? Qin Yitian said with a chuckle. Jiang Junling's hand gripped the tablecloth tightly and said, I miscalculated. You wouldn't have done this kind of thing before. Of course. Qin Yitian said. I used to pay attention to my image. You all say that I'm a goddess, and I also think that I'm a goddess, so I have to maintain my goddess-like appearance. What about now? In this regard, I've always done very well. Qin Yitian said with a smile. It's just that gods can also be angry. It wasn't easy for me to trick my male god to accompany me for a meal, a glass of wine, and a chat while watching the sunset. In the end, you sent a bully to provoke me and sent a lackey to kill me. You ruined everything. I really want to slap you 100 or 200 times. No one has ever hit me. You're the first. Jiang Junling said. I've hit 80 idiots, if not 100. So I don't think this is something to be proud of. Seeing that Jiang Junling's expression was not right, Lu Qingming and others quickly rushed over. Are you okay, young master? Lu Qingming asked with concern. Some people wanted to rush toward Qin Yitian, but Jiang Junling stopped them. I look forward to seeing you next time, Jiang Junling said. He pushed the chair away and stood up. Surrounded by a group of people, he walked toward the parking lot of the 10 Feet Abyss Hotel. However, his legs were tightly clamped, and his walking posture was a bit weird. Lu Qingming helped to open the car door, while Jiang Junling sat in the back without saying a word. Lu Qingming thought about it and took the initiative to sit in the front passenger seat of the car. Baoshi had already woken up when he was lifted up. He struggled to walk to the front of Jiang Junling. He covered his mouth and coughed violently, saying, I'm old and my fists are slow. I broke in front of a young man, and I even made young master lose face. After this matter, I'll go back to my hometown. I really don't have the face to stay by young master's side anymore. Jiang Junling looked at Bao Shi with a smile and said, Mr. Bao, you did very well. It's better than I expected. Thank you, young master. Have a good rest, Jiang Junling said in a gentle voice. It seemed that the person who said, let me kill him, had nothing to do with him. As the car started to move, Jiang Junling looked out of the window and thought about something. There are still 19 days left, right? Jiang Junling asked. Young master, what do you mean 19 days left? Lu Qingming asked. He took over the job of entertaining a big shot from Yanjing like Jiang Junling, and it was Lu Shu who accompanied him in the past. Therefore, he didn't know much about Lu Shu's character, and he didn't have the opportunity to participate in many secret things. For the past few days, he had been watching and learning. However, he didn't know how to answer Jiang Junling's inexplicable question. Jiang Junling seemed to be in a good mood as he explained. Known as the Light of the North, the #1 swordsman in Japan, Chiba Bin, has issued a challenge to Fang Yan. There are 19 days left until the day of their duel. Lu Qingming's eyes lit up. So, young master wants Mr. Bao to challenge Fang Yan. Messing up his state of mind, exhausting his body, hurting his internal organs. Mr. Bao has already buried a bomb in his body. When Fang Yan and Chiba Bin fight for their lives, this bomb will suddenly explode. How can I let Mr. Bao kill someone in public? Jiang Junling said. Of course, if Mr. Bao is killed, it's because he's not skilled enough. However, Fang Yan's happy life as a murderer will come to an end. Watching the sunrise and drinking good wine will be punished by heaven. What a pity, Lu Qingming said. Mr. Bao forced him, but he didn't kill him. So, he's smarter than I thought. Jiang Junling said. If he can escape from Chiba Bin's sword 19 days later, then he will be qualified to be my real opponent. Lu Qingming pondered for a moment and finally couldn't help but say, Young master, if he didn't interfere, our Lu family's plan would have succeeded. Shut up. Jiang Junling shouted coldly. Lu Qingming, what does your Lu family's plan have to do with me? What does your success or failure have to do with me? Lu Qingming realized that he had violated a taboo, so he quickly corrected and said, I know. Our Lu family's plan has nothing to do with young master. Young master didn't participate in anything, so he doesn't know anything. Lu Qingming secretly glanced at Jiang Junling's expression from the rearview mirror and found that Jiang Junling was staring at him with a burning gaze. He didn't know what Jiang Junling was thinking. What a difficult guy to get along with. Lu Qingming sighed in his heart. For the first time, he looked forward to Lu Shu's recovery. But since you want to plant a bomb in Fang Yan's body, why don't you let the fisherman plant a second bomb in his body? Lu Qingming asked. When he saw Jiang Junling's murderous eyes, he once again realized that he had stepped on a landmine. He probably didn't have the confidence to win, right? Chapter 229. Once Jiang Junling was far away, the fisherman put away his bamboo pole. He looked at Fang Yan thoughtfully and said, Not bad, kid. You're not as inflexible as your grandfather. You're as inflexible as my grandfather. If you accept my suggestion, there's nothing we can't do if we work together. The fisherman snorted coldly and slowly walked outside. Fang Yan was very helpless against this old man who didn't know how to be flexible. If he agreed to betray them, the two of them would have long thrown Jiang Junling and the group of minions behind him into the abyss. Fang Yan walked in front of Qini Tian and said with a smile, The steak is cold. I've lost my appetite too, Qini Tian said with some annoyance. The steak could be made again if it was cold, but if the good mood was gone, that would be really infuriating. The scenery is still here. Let's go out for a walk. Fang Yan took the initiative to invite them. Of course. Qini Tian nodded. But before that, can I trouble you to do me a small favor? Fang Yan squatted down and picked up Qini Tian's high heels from under the table and handed them to her. The girl had secretly untied the laces of the high heels and used them as a hidden weapon to attack Jiang Junling. Although the action was a little unsightly, The effect was obvious. Fang Yan saw Jiang Junling's strange walking posture when he left. He must have had a hard time holding it in. "Help me put it on," Qin said coquettishly as she extended her smooth, jade-like feet in front of Fang Yan. Fang Yan shifted his gaze and said with a straight face, "Put it on yourself." Qin smiled. She knew that Fang Yan wouldn't ignore her identity as a teacher. She wanted to close the distance, but he kicked her away. It was a little annoying. Qin took the shoes and put them on. Looking at the messy restaurant in front of him, Qin beckoned Wu Yiwei over and said, "Calculate how we should compensate you for your losses." Wu Yiwei thanked her gratefully and said, "Miss Qin, you don't have to worry about this matter. When Mr. Zhang left, he told us to put all our losses on his account. I've brought you a lot of trouble today, please forgive me." Although those guys were wretched, they still did their job well on the surface. Qin generously waved his hand and said, "This matter has nothing to do with you." As the sun set in the west, the myriad rays of light in the sky had already converged, leaving behind only a patch of red that had not been wiped clean. Fang Yan and Qin walked side by side on the mountain path, stepping on the green grass and red flowers, facing the thin mist and cool breeze. It was quite comfortable. Qin didn't speak, and Fang Yan didn't want to either. Both of them had their own thoughts, and only the sound of their feet stepping on the grass could be heard. Some insects were disturbed by them, chirping and running away. "What are you thinking about?" Qin broke the silence and asked. "I'm thinking about how many people are paying attention to the Battle of One Sword Peak in 19 days, Fang Yan said. "It seems that this matter has been spread out maliciously. If you accept, then you may be killed by the Qinya army. If you refuse, the Fang family's reputation will be damaged, and the Fang family will be humiliated. It's quite difficult," Qin said. "You see, even you know about this matter, so it's inevitable that those people with ulterior motives are adding fuel to the fire." Fang Yan smiled bitterly. "What I'm worried about is that if everyone is like your old friend, General Ling, and brings 3 to 5 experts to challenge me, I'm afraid that I'll be beaten to death by them before the final battle even arrives." Qin smiled and said, "At that time, I was really worried that you would hurt someone." "You were worried that I would kill someone, weren't you?" Fang Yan shook his head gently. "I'm not as stupid as he thinks. Jiang Junling is very conceited and sinister. He appeared in the 10-feet abyss unintentionally, but he instantly thought of a way to put you in a dilemma. Whether it's Young Thug's provocation or Bao Shi's challenge, they're all foreshadowing the Battle of One Sword Peak in 19 days. He's a very generous person, and Young Thug's provocation shouldn't be his doing. Lu Qingming is a member of the Lu family, and the young man who just replaced Lu Shu doesn't know you well enough, so it's reasonable for him to test you with a playboy. However, he pushed Grandmaster Bao Shi out to challenge you. That's his intention. The Southern Dragon and the Northern Phoenix. The Dragon and the Phoenix are the kings of the Xing-Yi sect, and they're worshipped by all the Xing-Yi disciples. How could they be defeated so easily? As a Grandmaster, he challenged a nameless kid like me, but he still held back his strength in the Battle of Honor." Fang Yan sneered. "He didn't want to kill anyone, and he didn't want to be Jiang Junling's scapegoat. That's why I'm handing the initiative to you." Qin smiled. "They're both smart people. Isn't Jiang Junling disappointed?" "He should be a little disappointed," Qin said. "He doesn't make a move easily, but he's never lost. He wants Young Thug to ruin my state of mind, and Dragon Master Bao Shi to exhaust my energy and strength. It would be best if Dragon Master Bao Shi killed me. Then, everything will be over. If I kill Bao Shi, it won't be over. In front of so many people, I'm afraid no one would dare to protect a murderer, right?" Fang Yan looked at Qin and said, "At that time, your Mr. Fang will become a murderer that everyone hates and fears. In my opinion, someone who can easily throw a punch is just a martial artist. However, a real martial artist is someone who knows when to pull back his fist." Qin looked at Fang Yan with bright eyes and said, "I could hear their regret, but I was relieved at that moment. Fang Yan, you're different from others." "But I was still tricked by Jiang Junling. Fang Yen shook his head with a bitter smile and said, "Don't make me sound so great. I pulled back my fist because I was forced by the situation. After I defeated Baoshi, Jiang Junling immediately restrained himself. He didn't let the fisherman fight because he was worried that if the fisherman couldn't defeat me, it wouldn't be easy for him to leave the 10-feet abyss. He would have to suffer some humiliation." "What about you?" Qin Etienne asked with interest. "The fisherman blocked your way, but you didn't attack him. This is not like you. Do you think you can't win?" "Who knows if I can win before fighting?" Fang Yen sighed softly. "Jiang Junling has a strong army. After defeating Baoshi, there will be a hanged ghost fisherman. After defeating the hanged ghost fisherman, does he have no other good cards? He can keep changing cards, but I only have one card in my hand. If I lose, I won't have a chance to start again. So, I have to be careful. I'm not a loser, but I'm just a teacher. I can't compare to those rich young masters who have hundreds of millions of dollars in their hands." But he returned in defeat. "I'm also holding my breath," Fang Yen said. "So, you're saying that you're evenly matched this time?" "No, he won," Fang Yen said. "Tai Chi is all about calmness. It's hard to have the heart of Tai Chi if the heart is not calm. It's hard to enter the state of Tai Chi if your Chi is not in harmony. After being tormented by him like that, how could I maintain my calm state? What's the most important thing to me right now? It's the Battle of Single Sword Peak in 19 days. I know it and he knows it too. So, he brought me so much trouble with just a wave of his hand. I'm exhausted from dealing with it, and I have to find a way to calm my heart and Chi. Say, why is that bastard so annoying?" Qin Etienne felt guilty. "I'm the one who dragged you down. If he hadn't dragged Fang Yen to the 10-feet abyss for a meal, he wouldn't have met Jiang Junling. If he hadn't met Jiang Junling, so many things wouldn't have happened and destroyed Fang Yan's inner peace." Fang Yen shook his head. "How does Jiang Junling treat you?" "On the surface, he's close, but deep down he's distant," Qin Etienne said. "Perhaps he is estranged from everyone." "Do you think that Jiang Junling attacked me because of you?" Qin Etienne looked puzzled. He looked at Fang Yen and asked, "Is there any other reason?" "I don't understand." Fang Yen shook his head and sighed. "But I have a feeling that things aren't that simple. Do you still remember the scene when I first met Jiang Junling? At that time, I felt that the way he looked at me was a bit strange. It wasn't friendly, but it wasn't hostile. It was just like he was familiar with me. You know, I practice Tai Chi, so I'm very sensitive to things around me. I can more or less sense other people's attitudes toward me. It's hard to hide my Tai Chi heart from others, even if they're sincere or perfunctory. I think your Tai Chi practice must be very bad, right?" Qin Etienne said. "Why do you say that?" Fang Yen asked. He felt that he had practiced it quite well. He was the only one in the Fang family who could enter the Tai Chi state at this age. Even if all the other Tai Chi practitioners in Wuxia were included, how many of them could enter the Tai Chi state? If it's really as you said, that Tai Chi can sense other people's likes and dislikes toward you. I've made it so obvious. Why can't you feel it at all? Qin Etienne asked doubtfully. Fang Yen smiled bitterly. He looked around and saw a few red wild fruits on the trees on the mountainside. He ran over and picked the fruits. He walked to Qin Etienne and handed them to her, saying, "I learned from Jiang Junling that today is your birthday. It seems that I didn't have time to prepare a gift. Happy birthday." Perfunctory. Qin Etienne didn't reach out to take the fruits. "You don't want me to throw them away?" Fang Yen asked. Qin Etienne snatched the fruit from Fang Yan's hand and said, "Take it home and feed it to the pigs." Chapter 230. Of course, those wild fruits were not taken by Qin Etienne to feed to the pigs. Moreover, her family did not raise pigs. This fruit, which was called wild plum by Fang Yen, was washed with spring water, and with a crunch sound, he took a big bite and chewed it in his mouth. A sour and astringent juice immediately flowed into his mouth, and then spread to his internal organs. At that moment his body would shiver a few times, and his body would shake non-stop, as if someone had poured a basin of ice water on him in the winter. When he gradually got used to this taste, his mouth would also regain its feeling. The sourness was still the same, but there was a faint sweetness, which made people feel refreshed. On a big stone, Fang Yen and Qin Yitian were eating this wild fruit. This kind of wild plum should be eaten with steak. Fang Yen said, "If I knew this, I would have listened to them and bought a piece of steak here, and picked a few wild plums and washed them. A mouthful of greasy beef, and then a bite of this sour wild fruit. The taste must be very good. It's a pity that I didn't know there was such a treasure land, and such a celestial fruit in the world." Qin Yitian swallowed the flesh in his mouth, looked at Fang Yen and said, "Even if you knew there was such a treasure land, and such celestial fruit in the world, if someone asked you to pack it and give up your seat, you would not pack it and give up your seat. Fang Yen, you are very arrogant." "More arrogant than you?" "More arrogant than me." Fang Yen smiled and said, "Qin Yitian, I know you are smart, so I can't tell you to study hard and not waste time. I know you are rich, so I can't tell you to work hard for your future. To be honest, I am under a lot of pressure as your teacher, because I found that I really have nothing to teach you. What I have, you have. What I don't have, you also have. A student is so much better than a teacher. This is a disaster for a teacher. Although I am not your teacher in reality, I am your teacher in name. So, you have to respect me and I will love you. Teachers and students should be like this, and only like this. Do you understand what I mean?" Fang Yen shook his head with a smile and said, "You are so smart, you will definitely understand." Fang Yen felt that there were some things that he should make clear to Qin Yitian. Even if she was not a qualified teacher, Qin Yitian was not an ordinary student. However, a teacher was a teacher and a student was a student. From his standpoint, he would choose to keep a distance from these students. It was for this purpose that he agreed to accompany Qin Yitian for dinner. Qin Yitian stopped chewing. He threw the half-eaten wild plum into the canyon and walked to the stream to wash his hands. She squatted beside the pool and looked at Fang Yen, who was not far away. She asked, "Fang Yen, do you think I will listen to you?" Fang Yen was stunned. He thought about it and answered honestly, "No." "Correct answer," Qin Yitian said. Fang Yen felt very helpless. All the words he had said just now were all for nothing. "Fang Yen, you have your excuses to run away. I have my reasons to persist." Qin Yitian easily resolved the dilemma that Fang Yen had put out. She had drawn a clear line between them and each other. In her eyes, this was not a big deal. "I know that my birthday is the most important day in a girl's eyes. Dragging you out to eat and chat has brought you a lot of pressure. You are worried that you will be attacked and criticized when the matter is exposed. You are afraid of the rumors of the world. You want to maintain your current state of mind and live a comfortable life. I can understand all of this. I don't want others to celebrate my birthday with me because I don't like the false flattery and the illusory luxury. I am tired when others are tired. Why make things difficult for others and myself? I don't want to celebrate my birthday alone. Although this day is no different from other days, I still hope that it can be a little different. I don't have any friends in Huacheng. You are the first person I thought of. I didn't tell you that today is my birthday because I don't want you to think about the age gap between us. I don't need you to give me a gift. You coming to celebrate my birthday with me is already the best gift. Saying so much is really affecting my goddess image. But I want to tell you that I am happy and I have no regrets. Please enjoy it." The next sentence made Fang Yen jump in anger. He wanted to jump off the big rock he was sitting on and die. Qin Yitian glanced at Fang Yen lightly and said, "Because objection is invalid." This was Qin Yitian. No one could change what she had decided. You could say that she was stubborn, unruly, or even that she didn't know how to love herself and didn't care about others' feelings. But she was Qin Yitian. She had countless strengths, but she also had many weaknesses. Others called her a goddess, but she would smile when she was happy and throw things when she was angry. She was a living little girl who looked forward to some changes and longed for some romance. Love or not, it was all up to fate. Suddenly, Fang Yan's scalp tightened. His body suddenly pounced towards Qin Yitian, who was standing by the stream not far away. Like a goshawk hunting a rabbit. Qin Etian was shocked. Just a few words, why was he so angry? Plop. Fang Yen hugged Qin Etian and the two of them fell into the stream. Boom, a black bird flying above Qin Etian's head suddenly exploded where he was standing. There was a rumbling sound and flames were everywhere. What was more terrifying was that the black bird's body exploded. Balls of green liquid splattered everywhere. Anything that came into contact with the green liquid was immediately burned into black charcoal. From this, it could be seen how shocking the destructive power of the poison was. If Fang Yen hadn't pushed Qin Etian away in time, the charming Qin Etian would have been roasted into a small piece of charred bone. Fang Yen and Qin Etian's bodies sank to the bottom of the stream. A few seconds after the explosion sounded, they floated up from the water. After looking around and finding no danger, he pulled Qin Etian up from the bottom of the water. Qin Etian was pushed into the stream by Fang Yen without any defense. Moreover, his back was facing the ground. His mouth and nose were continuously swallowed several mouthfuls of water. After being pulled up, he began to cough violently. The clothes on her body were wet, and it was even more crowded around her exquisite body. There were also a few parts of her body exposed. Fang Yen quickly looked away. He took off his coat, unscrewed the water inside, and draped it over Qin Etian's shoulders. He looked at the blackened grass and stones, and then at the few balls of green liquid floating on the water. He couldn't help but feel a little scared. If the liquid had passed through the water and dripped onto the two of them, wouldn't the consequences be disastrous? They should have a backup plan, Fang Yen said. He grabbed Qin Etian's arm and said, "Let's go back to the Zhang Yuan restaurant." The nearest building was the Zhang Yuan restaurant. There were many people there, and presumably, the killers wouldn't dare to be too unscrupulous. If they wanted to run down the mountain, it would create more space and opportunities for the killers to attack. Qin Etian didn't panic, nor did she resist. Her eyes were just able to open. She just quickly ran to the foot of the hill under Fang Yan's lead. Crack! A crisp sound was heard. Qin Etian frowned slightly and said, "The heel broke." In order to have a romantic birthday and to make Fang Yen feel stunned at first sight, she wore a beautiful dress with high heels. Now that the heel of the high heels was stuck in a crack in the stone, it was naturally difficult for her to run. Fang Yen didn't have time to help her change her shoes and rub her feet. He quickly turned around, carried Qin Etian by the waist, and rushed to the foot of the mountain with his low body. If he were alone, he would have 10,000 ways to solve the problem. However, he had Qin Etian in his arms, so there was only one way to solve the problem: escape. Bang! A big stone on his left was smashed, and a fist-sized stone was blasted away. Sniper! There was a sniper! Fang Yen didn't dare to be careless, nor did he dare to take a straight path. His body swayed left and right, and his route was drunk and sweaty, but he ran as fast as a rabbit. Bang! Another stone was blasted away where Fang Yen had just landed. Fang Yen didn't have a rhythm when he ran, but the sniper had a very good sense of rhythm. He didn't rush, and every shot could bring great pressure to Fang Yen. Fang Yen didn't dare to run anymore, but found a stone forest to hide. Don't compete with the sniper's rhythm, let alone compete with their speed. If your rhythm was controlled by them, only death awaited you. Fang Yen stopped, and the sniper stopped firing. Fang Yen couldn't see the sniper's position and movement, but Fang Yen knew that the sniper must have a panoramic view of their every move through the scope. The sniper was high up, and they were low down. They had sniper rifles, and Fang Yen only had Qin Etian. This was an unfair war. Qin Etian's body leaned against the big stone, and Fang Yen used his body to block in front of her. This had nothing to do with love, but morality. He was a teacher at Rosefinch High School, and Qin Etian was his student. Even if it was a bad student like Zheng Guodong, Fang Yen was willing to carry him up from the mountainside with ropes on his back, and Qin Etian was no exception. It was natural for a teacher to protect his students. Unless he died, or someone else couldn't touch his students. No matter what the purpose of those people was, and in what name. Qin Etian breathed like orchids, and stared at Fang Yan's thin-side face with burning eyes. "What are you looking at?" Fang Yan asked. He was very uncomfortable by the girl's bold eyes. While his whole body was alert, he couldn't help but ask. You are a hero and I am a beauty. Even if we die today, others will say that we are a match made in heaven. Qin Etian said with a smile. I want to hear others praise me like that. Chapter 231. In the eyes of outsiders, Qin Etian was a goddess, but in Qin Etian's eyes, Qin Etian was a woman. In Fang Yan's eyes, Qin Etian was a crazy woman. The biological bomb that had turned into a wild bird was brutally bombarded, the mysterious sniper was fatally locked down, there was a tiger behind them, and there was a wolf in front of them. If they were not careful, they could lose their lives here. She didn't look for a way to escape, but looked forward to being praised. After being pushed into a stream and drinking a few mouthfuls of muddy water, her IQ had dropped to this level? Make a call. Call the police, Fang Yan said in a deep voice. He tore his jacket off Qin Etian's shoulders and threw it at a spot where the boulder couldn't cover. Bang! Before the coat could fall to the ground, it was pierced by a bullet. What was even more frightening was that the force of the bullet was too great. His drenched clothes were like a jumping rabbit as he was sent flying a few steps away by the bullet before falling to the ground with a thud. They were still locked down by the sniper rifle. The sniper didn't move casually. He was still in his original position, patiently waiting for his prey to jump out. In other words, the slightest carelessness could lead to a headshot. After confirming that the sniper didn't move, Fang Yan was relieved. Although a sniper rifle was powerful, it was a long-range attack weapon. If he hid behind the big rock and didn't show his head, could his sniper rifle penetrate the big rock that was taller than a person? One side was the victim, and the other side was the attacker. The longer it took, the more advantageous it would be for Fang Yan and the others. Those guys were all vampires hiding in dark corners. Although they were extremely dangerous, they couldn't see the light of day. Qin Etian didn't call the police. He looked at Fang Yan and said, My bag is still on the top of the mountain. Where can I call the police with my phone? Qin Etian loved to see Fang Yan's tense expression, his eyes sharp, and his side profile alert. It was said that men who worked hard were the sexiest. Qin Etian felt that men who showed their brave, strong, and responsible side in life and death situations were the most fatal charm to women. Even in such a difficult environment, Qin Etian did not feel much danger, because Fang Yan gave her an extraordinary sense of security. Which woman doesn't lack a sense of security? Even if she was a goddess. Athena still had Saint Seiya behind her. She believed that Fang Yan would be able to solve these problems. They were like chickens and dogs that could not withstand a single blow. Only now did Fang Yan remember that when he and Qin Etian were sitting on a big rock at the top of the mountain and eating wild plums, Qin Etian's handbag was placed on the grass. Later, Qin Etian walked to the stream to wash his hands, and then he pushed her into the water. After he scooped her up, he immediately ran down the mountain. How could he care about her handbag? Fang Yan reached into his trouser pocket, and his cell phone was gone. Obviously, when he pushed Qin Etian into the stream, the cell phone had sunk to the bottom of the water. Without a cell phone and communication device, he could only wait for outside rescue. Fang Yan did not look at Qin Etian's face. Now he had more important things to do. He said, Where is your bodyguard? The little old man who often comes to pick you up in a luxury car. I can see that he is a master. He didn't follow me out. Qin Etian said, As long as he is with you, he will automatically avoid you. He also thinks that you are good at martial arts and that you can protect me. What a beautiful misunderstanding. Fang Yan smiled bitterly. If he had a bodyguard like the little old man, he would take him wherever he went. Tall, thin, elegant, and good at martial arts, such a guy could only open the car door for you. Could he be compared with those guys who drove Ferrari sports cars? No matter which bar or which barbecue stall he went to, he could be an invincible existence. Why was Jiang Junling so arrogant? Wasn't it because he had several such little old men as bodyguards? Otherwise, Fang Yan would have already beaten him to the point that even his mother couldn't recognize him. He is an old man in my family. He watched me grow up. I have worked hard to pursue a man, and I haven't succeeded yet. He couldn't bear to see it anymore, so as long as I am with you, he won't appear by my side. Even he knows about the matter between you and me? Fang Yen had a feeling that he wanted to vomit blood. A student likes his teacher. His parents will soon come to the door, right? You know that I am a person who doesn't like to lie. Qin Yitian said, this is not a shameful thing. Could it be that your parents also know about it? Fang Yen asked cautiously. Even though he had done everything in the right way and thought that nothing had ever happened between him and Qin Yitian, he still couldn't believe it. Moreover, he had always regarded Qin Yitian's pursuit as a child's naughtiness and game. That was all. What do these little kids know about like and love? If there is one person in this world that I can't lie to, that person must be my mother. You mean that your mother knows? Although my mother is smarter than my father, she won't hide anything from my father. It's over. Fang Yen had such a thought in his mind. Qin Yitian's mouth was slightly raised. When she smiled, there was an amazing and beautiful arc. She looked at Fang Yen playfully and said, let me tell you a piece of good news. What good news? Detailed information such as your birth, how many times you peeped on the bed when you were a child, whether you peeped on the neighbor's little beauty when she was bathing, etc. It has probably appeared on my parents' desks several times. Qin Yitian said, my mother has a bad habit of investigating other people's privacy. What kind of good news is this? Fang Yen said while gritting his teeth. He could imagine that if Qin Yitian was born in a huge family. She kept shouting that she liked him. Wouldn't her family investigate him thoroughly? Even if he had a few strands of hair on his body and a bowl-sized scar on his calf, they would still be able to see it clearly. Fang Yen was very sad and felt that he was running naked. What was even sadder was that he only knew that he was running naked after running naked for a long time. Shouldn't a student liking a teacher be done in secret? For example, he often received love letters from the paper cranes. The girl didn't even dare to leave his name. How could Qin Yitian keep talking about it all over the world? They know of your existence, but they never say anything to stop it. Qin Yitian looked at Fang Yan's worried look and said, isn't this good news? You mean, your parents don't object to us being together? Although Fang Yen felt that it was strange to ask such a question, he had to say that he was still a little happy in his heart. Think about it. A girl like Qin Yitian, her parents must be quite excellent humans. Being appreciated and accepted by such excellent people, doesn't it also prove that I am the same kind of person as them? Who doesn't want to be the same kind of person as excellent people? Of course. Qin Yitian said. There is another possibility. What possibility? They don't put you in their eyes at all. Qin Yitian said. Fang Yen covered his chest with one hand. He felt that there must be a hole made by a sniper bullet. Otherwise, how could he feel the burning pain? Very quickly, he remembered that if the bullet had really pierced through his chest, he would already be in Qin Yitian's arms saying his last words to her. Don't ever like me again in your next life. I just want to be a quiet, beautiful man. But Qin Yitian's eyes lit up. Then he closed his eyes and died a natural and unrestrained death. What's the matter with the burning pain? Some people are called bitches because they run when you chase them. When Fang Yen heard that Qin Yitian's parents knew of his existence, he was a little angry in his heart. As a child, if you let your family know that you have puppy love at school, wouldn't it make your parents worry and embarrass the teacher? However, when Qin Yitian said that in his parents' eyes, he actually didn't exist at all, he felt indignant in his heart. Don't force me, don't force me. I will accept your daughter's pursuit when I go crazy. A knife was stabbed from top to bottom. The woman's body was extremely soft, as if there were no bones in her whole body. She appeared behind the big rock that Fang Yen and the others were leaning against, and then jumped high over the huge rock that was taller than a person. She held a triangular thorn in her hands and stabbed it from top to bottom towards the top of Fang Yan's head. If she stabbed him, Fang Yen would become the world's first human sausage. He would be roasted on the charcoal fire, and then he would tear off his arm and eat it with soy sauce and garlic. Fang Yen couldn't move. He sat there like an old monk in meditation. He couldn't rush up to meet the enemy, and he couldn't roll forward to easily avoid this killer move. Because when the woman above his head stabbed him with the knife, there was a man in black on the left running towards Qin Yitian. He couldn't let himself get hurt, and he couldn't let Qin Yitian get hurt. This was the responsibility of a teacher. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, this was the sound made by the friction between the body and the air. The woman above his head was faster, and the triangular thorn in her hand fell even faster. 3 feet, 2 feet, 1 foot. Fang Yen could even hear the sound of the sharp knife cutting his hair, and the sharp tip of the thin weapon was about to be inserted into his scalp. It was a close call. Fang Yen finally made his move, and he grabbed the back of the woman's hand that was holding the knife handle. The woman's body was supported by one hand, and she was lifted in the air in a very strange inverted position. At the same time, Fang Yen punched with his left hand. The man in black who tried to grab Qin Yitian from the side had just reached out his hand, and Fang Yen punched him. The fingers of the man in black were broken, and even his whole arm was sent flying. The teacher's student couldn't be bullied, and the teacher's dignity couldn't be tarnished. Chapter 232. It was a teacher's duty to protect students. If he couldn't, Fang Yen could only resign. I'm a teacher. I want to find a celebrity to endorse me. In Fang Yan's eyes, Qin Yitian was just a child, his student. No matter what ulterior motives these people had, he couldn't accept and tolerate them attacking a child. Fang Yen was angry, so his punch was naturally heavy. What was the result of an egg colliding with a stone? Smashed into pieces. Fang Yan's punch was not smashed into pieces, but his bones were definitely broken. The man in black didn't expect that he would encounter such a big disaster as soon as he stretched out his hand. When Fang Yen punched out, he still had the intention to compete with Fang Yen in terms of strength. After all, he thought he was also a master. However, when the energy hit him, he began to regret. It was too late to regret. What awaited him was that his whole arm was destroyed, and his bones and flesh were separated from his whole body. The smell of blood filled the air. Blood was dripping. In an instant, Fang Yen punched with both hands. With one hand, he lifted a woman in black who was stabbing at his head with a sharp blade, and with the other fist, he broke the whole arm of a man in black. There was a very short silence. The sharp blade in the woman's hand couldn't stab anymore, and the arm of the man in black fell to the ground, half of his sleeve fluttering in the wind. The whole scene gave people an extremely bloody and extremely strange feeling. Fang Yen still sat in the same place, motionless. A few drops of blood splashed on Qin Yitian's forehead, and more on his clothes. She didn't like the smell of blood, or rather, she didn't like anything dirty. The blood was very dirty. She looked at the woman in black in Fang Yan's hand, picked up a big stone, and smashed it at her head. The woman suddenly opened her mouth, and a white hidden weapon flew toward Fang Yan's face. Fang Yen carried Qin Yitian and dodged to the side. The hidden weapon hit the stone on the ground and exploded. It was a tooth bomb. After the tooth bomb exploded, the green liquid flowed out again. Although it was only a little bit, it still burned a hole in a large rock. It was conceivable that if Fang Yen could not dodge in time and was hit by this tooth, his face would be completely ruined. He would never be able to be an idle teacher again, right? Fang Yen was enraged. Who are these assassins? Why did the things he casually threw out have such destructive power? Fang Yen loosened his grip and the woman in black finally regained her freedom. With one hand holding the dagger, he stabbed at Fang Yan's back, which was on top of Qin Yitian. With the other hand he took out a small silver copper ball from his pocket. The steel ball left his hand and flew toward Fang Yan's next landing spot with a whistling sound. This woman was too hateful. She chased people from behind with a knife and stabbed them, but she used a firearm to block the way of others. She would not stop until she was dead. Although he did not know what the silver ball was, and Fang Yen did not even have time to look at it, he only knew that something was blocking in front of him based on the sound of the wind. According to the experience of the woman in black's continuous attacks, it must not be a good thing. The way forward was blocked. Fang Yen could only hold Qin Yitian and fall back. He just wanted to stay away from the green liquid that could explode and spray out strong corrosive green liquid. Qin Etienne was a national beauty, and he was also incomparably handsome. If such an outstanding young man and woman were destroyed, even the heavens would not forgive them. Fang Yan held Qin Etienne with one hand and grabbed the triangular dagger in the woman's hand with the other. It looked like a military knife, but it was slender and sharper. Or rather, it was an extended version of a military knife. Bang! The silver copper ball thrown by the woman in black landed on the ground and spun crazily like a top. The mechanism inside sounded, and the dazzling light flashed. It turned out to be a flash bomb. Fang Yan quickly closed his eyes to avoid being hurt by the strong light. Qin Etienne was smarter. He had already closed his eyes and was obediently held by Fang Yan's arm with one hand. Courting death. The woman's eyes were slightly cold and she cursed. Grabbing a knife with bare hands, did he think he was an immortal? Since you don't know what's good for you, then I will cut off your hand. Just like how you broke my teammate's arm with one punch, bang. Caught. The woman in black didn't know what happened, and the stabbing blood in her hand was already in Fang Yan's hand. She didn't see how Fang Yan avoided her attack, and she didn't see how she grabbed the knife. She just felt a pain in her wrist, and then the stabbing blood in her hand disappeared. Yes, she called this thing stabbing blood. Stabbing blood didn't make anyone bleed, but became someone else's weapon. The woman in black felt humiliated and rushed to Fang Yan even more crazily. Fang Yan didn't hesitate. What's yours is mine. Although Tai Chi palm, Tai Chi finger, and Tai Chi sword could hurt people, but now that he had such a sharp weapon in his hand, he didn't mind using it to stab the woman's chest or throat. Crack. Strange things happened. The stabbing blood in Fang Yan's hand suddenly grew 8 claws, like an octopus, and wrapped Fang Yan's wrist. In other words, now the stabbing blood became a part of Fang Yan's palm. Unless there was a key to open it or he cut off his arm, or it was difficult to separate it from his body. The woman quickly dodged, and then avoided a head-on fight with Fang Yan. She stood on the side and stared at Fang Yan with sarcasm. Fang Yan also stopped his attack. Because he didn't know what was on his hand, he didn't know what would happen to him. This is stabbing blood. I gave it a nickname, Octopus. The woman in black said with a dark face. This was a very ordinary and even ugly woman. Her body was thin, and the places that should be protruding were not protruding, and the places that should be perky were not perky. Triangular eyes, yellow eyebrows, and a dark face. She was quite conspicuous in the crowd. Ugly and conspicuous. It was precisely because of her unique physique that her speed was amazing. Her reaction was quick, and her IQ was not low. If she didn't go crazy at the moment after the stabbing blood was taken away, and more ferociously rushed to Fang Yan wouldn't have thought of grabbing her stabbing blood to let her bleed. Her attacks came one after another, and she didn't give people a chance to breathe. Moreover, he had used some tricks during the attack. Most of the time, bad people were smart people, because doing evil was the most test of intelligence. Killers were even more so. I fell into a trap. Fang Yan regretted it so much that his intestines turned green. Why was his hand so cheap? Why did he grab the blade with his bare hands? Others used the blade to show off, to look good, and to strike down the arrogance of the enemy. Why was it that after he stabbed himself with a knife, the knife didn't help him, but instead backstabbed him? Don't try to take it off. Unless you are willing to cut off half of your arm. Also, from now on, whatever I say, you have to do. The woman in black pointed to an electronic wristwatch on her wrist and said, Octopus is a bomb, and the button is in my hand. You don't have to believe it, but I don't mind blowing you up. Fang Yan almost jumped up. He stared at the woman in black angrily and said, It's just killing a person, is there a need to be so troublesome? This is the style of our arsenal. The woman sneered again and again. I know you have good skills, but now is the era of high technology. Fists are no longer omnipotent. Arsenal? Fang Yan thought about it again and again, but he still didn't know what kind of organization this was. Could it be that this was a new killer organization? The name Arsenal was indeed in line with their style of doing things. Whether it was the remote control wild bird, the poison fang bomb in the mouth, the silver ball of light, or the octopus on her wrist, Every one of them was extremely exquisite and powerful, making it impossible to guard against. Fang Yan put Qin Yitian on the ground. Even if this thing accidentally exploded, he didn't want to hurt his student. Qin Yitian looked at the octopus on Fang Yan's wrist and frowned. She stretched out her jade-like wrist and looked at the woman in black and said, "You are looking for me, right? Put that thing in my hand, or lock it or something. Let him go." The woman in black sneered and said, "Miss Qin really lives up to her reputation. Sacrificing yourself to save others is extremely stupid. Since he is involved and knows the secret of our arsenal, do you think he has a chance to live?" Fang Yan felt wronged and said, "I didn't want to hear it. You said it yourself." This woman was too hateful. She didn't keep her mouth shut. She told you about the existence of the arsenal, and now she blamed you for knowing too many secrets. How could you bully an honest person like this? The man in black whose arm was punched off by Fang Yan also came over and took out a bottle of red liquid from his pocket. He raised his head and drank it. The blood flow from the broken part of his shoulders slowed down a lot. Before he took the medicine, the blood spurted out like a fountain. He then took out a small spray bottle from his pocket and sprayed it on the wound a few times. The blood was completely stopped. Fang Yan was a little envious. Fighting and killing were inevitable in Jianghu. The last time Bailey Lu came, he was beaten like a dog and ran away. He was definitely injured. If he could get such medicine to treat his injuries, the danger would be reduced and his fighting strength would be higher. The man stared at Fang Yan viciously and spoke as if he wanted to tear Fang Yan into pieces. He said, "You have been captured." He pulled out a modified desert eagle from his waist and pressed the muzzle against Fang Yan's head. "Unfortunately, you are not qualified to be a hostage." Chapter 233. Unfortunately, you're not qualified to be a hostage. Fang Yan felt that he had been insulted. "You can insult me all you want." Fang Yan was often insulted, and it wasn't a big deal to him. But it's not good to kill someone after insulting him, isn't it? Maybe it was because of the deep hatred of Fang Yan for destroying his arm, or maybe the man in black was a cruel and murderous person. He pointed the gun at Fang Yan's head and was about to pull the trigger. "Deagle, you're crazy." The woman in black used her palm to block the muzzle and said, "You can't kill him." Deagle was furious. With red eyes, he roared, "Why can't I kill him? We want someone from the Qin family. This guy is insignificant. His death isn't even within our scope." Fang Yan was very angry. How was he insignificant? As long as he nodded, he would be the son-in-law of the Qin family. Why didn't you treat me well with such an important hostage and blackmail the Qin family for money or other valuable things? How could he just kill him like that? What a waste. He's close to the Qin family. The woman was more sensitive when it came to emotions. Her eyes swept between Fang Yan and Qin Yitian's faces. She said, "It's so late and they're still together. He's desperately protecting Miss Qin. Maybe he's also a big fish." "He's my boyfriend," Qin Yitian said proudly. Fang Yan glanced at Qin Yitian, but didn't expose her white lie. She was trying to save him, to make his identity more important. This mysterious arsenal organization wouldn't do anything to him. The woman in black glanced at Deagle proudly as if to say, "See, I'm right. How can you kill such an important person? You can only maximize your benefits if you stay." "Damn it," Deagle roared angrily. His arm was smashed by a punch. He would be humiliated when he returned to the organization. If he could not kill the culprit, then he would never be able to wash away his shame. He grabbed Fang Yan's collar and pulled Fang Yan's body in front of him. He stared at his annoying face and said word by word, "I will definitely kill you." "I don't doubt it at all," Fang Yan said. "If it weren't for the help of these two kind-hearted ladies, I would have died by now." Shang knew that the two kind ladies Fang Yan was talking about were his partners, Dragonfly and Qin Yitian. He couldn't do anything to Dragonfly because she had a higher rank in the organization and was the executive officer of every mission. However, he didn't mind giving Qin Yitian some threats. He looked at her with an evil smile and said, "Little girl, come back with me. I will treat you well." You don't have the qualifications to negotiate with me. Qin Etian said arrogantly. This girl was still thinking of revenge for Fang Yen. Deagle had just put his collector's edition Desert Eagle into his waist, but after hearing Qin Etian's words, he couldn't help but pull it out. Deagle. The woman in black frowned. Don't hurt our guests. You know the consequences of failure. Deagle's face was full of shame and unwillingness, but there was nothing he could do. Qin Etian was right. He really didn't have the qualifications to negotiate with Qin Etian. The ones who could negotiate with her were higher-ranking officers in the organization. He was just the lowest-ranking executive officer. Fang Yen and Qin Etian were kidnapped. They were escorted to the hillside. A black GMC limousine was already waiting by the roadside. It had to be said that this organization was very capable and efficient. The car was running, and the driver was waiting by the door. A tall middle-aged man looked at Fang Yen with bright eyes and said with a fake smile, "I've seen you before." Fang Yen said thoughtfully, "You're the sniper?" "Very few people can escape from my gun," Bat said. "I hope we'll have a chance to fight again. I'm looking forward to blowing your head off with one shot." "Me too." Fang Yen shook his head regretfully. "As you can see, I'm now your captive. I don't know what you want, but if I don't get what you want, I'm sure you'll kill me, right? So, fighting again is just an extravagant hope. A philosopher once said, when you say goodbye, you should be more forceful. One more sentence might be your last sentence, and one more look might be your last look. We'll never meet again." Bat felt that this guy was crazy. "You're not my woman. Why should I be more forceful, say more, or look at you more?" Bat turned around and opened the door of the GMC. She made an inviting gesture and said, "Please." Qin Etian stepped in first. Fang Yen was in their hands. Even if she was free, there was no way she could resist. Fang Yen followed, and then the woman in black and Deagle came in to escort the car. Bat glanced at Fang Yen again and pulled the door shut from outside. He was the driver. After he got into the driver's seat, the car quickly started and rushed to the foot of Zhang Mountain at an even faster speed. The interior of the GMC had been specially modified. It looked like a prison van used to transport prisoners. The difference was that the car's configuration was dozens or even hundreds of times more comfortable than a prison van. Leather seats, LCD TV, cigar boxes, and a small wine cabinet. Which prison van would have such luxurious treatment? Fang Yen and Qin Etian sat on the left, while the woman in black and Deagle sat opposite. The four of them looked at each other without any expression on their faces. Perhaps it was because she had the bomb remote control, but the woman in black was very relaxed. She said to Deagle, "Bandage your arm." Deagle glared at Fang Yen fiercely, threatening him not to act rashly. Then he opened the fridge and took out a medical kit. He took out some disinfectant from the silver medical kit and disinfected it a second time. After spraying the medicine, he wrapped the broken arm tightly with a sticky gauze. He did it like he was used to it, as if his arm was broken dozens of times a day. There was no sign of pain on his face, as if the arm didn't grow out of his body. Even Fang Yen felt sorry for him. These people were probably like machines, right? Qin Etian looked at the woman in black calmly. He always maintained his pride as a member of the Qin family. He looked at the woman in black and said, "What do you want?" "We're only responsible for bringing you back. As for what you want, it's not up to me to talk to you." The woman in black's answer was very disappointing. They couldn't get any useful information. Qin Etian didn't force it. He just sat there, his mind terrifyingly tough. If other high school students encountered such a scene, with the birdie bomb and the sniper, they would have wet their pants long ago and couldn't even stand up. However, this little girl was completely fine. She looked even calmer than her teacher, Fang Yen. Fang Yen looked into Qin Etian's eyes and asked with concern, "Are you cold?" Qin Etian nodded and said, "Cold." As he spoke, he leaned his body into Fang Yen's arms. Fang Yen rested his chin on his hair, and the two of them maintained an ambiguous and warm position. The woman in black opened her mouth slightly, but in the end, she didn't say anything. Their mission was completed. They just needed to bring these two people back to the organization. Octopus locked Fang Yan's hands. He and Deagle were on guard. She didn't believe that this man could bring them any danger. Besides, he was probably worried that he would hurt Miss Qin, right? If he did anything out of line, they wouldn't hesitate to aim their guns at Qin Etienne's head. The mountain road was uneven, so the car was a little bumpy. Qin Etienne had experienced such a disaster and done such intense exercise. He was drowsy from the shaking of the car. His eyelids were getting heavier and heavier, and he could barely keep them open. Fang Yan also appeared somewhat tired. He closed his eyes and rested. Sleepiness was contagious. Deagle gave the woman in black a look, and she nodded. Deagle was seriously injured and had lost a lot of blood. He also needed to close his eyes and rest for a while. The woman in black, on the other hand, was full of energy. She stared at Fang Yan's shoulder with vigilance. A person's eyes could lie, but the body couldn't. No matter how small a movement he made, it would involve some key parts of his body. He had killed countless people, so these little secrets couldn't be hidden from her. Fang Yan's counterattack was so sudden that no one had expected it. He hit his chest, and Qin Etienne fell toward the back of the car. The blood-piercing device had fallen from Fang Yan's hand and was now in Fang Yan's hand. He stabbed the knife toward Deagle's chest. Deagle was anxious, and he threw himself in the direction of Qin Etienne. As long as he blocked Qin Etienne in front of him, he didn't believe that the kid wouldn't be afraid to hurt him. The car was wide, but it was only the size of a small car. Even with a few people fighting inside, it still seemed very narrow. With just one leap, Deagle was about to hold Qin Etienne in his arms. There was a ferocious smile on his face, and his hand had already touched Qin Etienne's clothes. Crack! The sound of a knife cutting tofu came. He felt a pain in his chest, and a soft numbness spread all over his body. He looked down and saw that his black shirt had been dyed brown by the blood. On his chest, the sharp blade was dripping with delicate blood. His body had been pierced through. Too fast, Deagle thought. His idea was good, and his method was right. However, in front of Fang Yan's absolute speed, it was childish and laughable. He regretted it. He regretted it so much. If he had shot Fang Yan's head, pierced Fang Yan's heart, and smashed Fang Yan's body into a pulp, he would have done it to the other unimportant people. How could Fang Yan do such a thing? He regretted it so much, and then he really died. He regretted it so much. Chapter 234. The ancients used the phrase, cock crowing and dog stealing, to describe some people who had no talent and only knew unorthodox ways to take advantage of others. Pretending to be a dog to help him get away, imitating a cock to crow to trick people to open the city gate, these skills were very suitable in ancient times, and they were also very popular in modern times. Fang Yan used the method of dog stealing, shrinking his body bones until his whole arm was free from the 8 octopus claws on Ci Shui. In the past, someone could pretend to be a dog and get out of a narrow cat hole, and Fang Yan's bone shrinking ability was far better than that of the predecessors. The most difficult part of the octopus clasp was the palm. It was wide, fat, and tightly locked by 8 octopus claws. Fang Yan simply used his left hand to break the 5 fingers of his right hand one by one, and pinched the 5 fingers into a ball, just like the flour used to fry fried dough sticks. This was a cruel and long process. It was cruel because you had to break your finger bones and recombine them, so that they could make more space for you to unlock. Only in this way, and only in this way could you take these damn claws off your arm. It was long because you needed to be careful not to be found by the 2 people sitting opposite you. The 10 fingers were connected to the heart. No matter how unbearable the pain was, you couldn't frown, and your face couldn't show any trace of pain. When you broke the bones, you couldn't show any flaws. After the Ci Shui was taken out, you still couldn't show any flaws. More importantly, when you did all this, you needed some cover. Qin Etienne's body was the best cover. When Fang Yan asked her if she was cold, although she didn't know what Fang Yan was going to do, she knew in her heart that Fang Yan must want to do something. Otherwise, based on her understanding of Fang Yan, he wouldn't take the initiative to care about whether she was cold or not. Qin Etian said cold, and then took the initiative to lean his body in Fang Yan's arms. Fang Yan needed her help, and she took the initiative to create opportunities for Fang Yan. Faced with such a smart and understanding little girl, Fang Yan's heart almost melted. Therefore, the two of them cooperated well and pierced Deagle's heart when he was caught off guard. Fang Yan's attack had killed Xiang. Life and death could be decided in an instant. At the same time that Fang Yan stabbed Desert Eagle to death, the woman in black had already pounced on Fang Yan from behind. Her reaction was not slow. Fang Yan didn't even look at it. He didn't even have time to pull out the ci shui in his hand. He punched behind him. The woman in black turned her fist into a palm to block. Bang! Her weak body was sent flying by Fang Yan's punch, which was full of vigor and power, but she did not have enough strength. The woman in black's body hit the wall of the carriage, and then bounced back and rolled to the ground. Fang Yan pounced on the woman in black. He had to kill her in the shortest time possible. These people came from the mysterious Arsenal organization, and they had all kinds of strange biological weapons in their hands. No matter how good their martial arts were, they were afraid of a kitchen knife. Fang Yan's flesh and blood was really afraid of their bombs. Now they were all in the car. A little carelessness would result in the car being destroyed and people dying. This was not what Fang Yan wanted to see. He was afraid of death. The woman in black lay on the ground motionlessly. She quickly took off the electronic watch on her wrist and held it high in the air. This was her attitude, her threat. Fang Yan's pounce stopped. He squatted in front of the woman in black, his sharp eyes staring at every organ on her black face, capturing every subtle expression on her face. Even the slightest movement of her eyelashes would analyze her motive and purpose. If she showed any suspicious movements, Fang Yan would immediately pull out the ci shui and jump down through the glass with her in his arms. That way, Qin Etian would have a chance to survive. Of course, this was based on the fact that the sniper driving in front didn't react so quickly, or his heart wasn't so vicious. The woman in black didn't speak, and Fang Yan didn't speak either. Both of their bodies were tense. One was ready to snatch the electronic watch at any time. The other was careful. As long as Fang Yan moved, he would press the remote control button. The atmosphere was tense and dangerous. Bat, who was driving in front, heard the noise in the carriage and shouted through the heavy door, "Deagle, what happened?" Deagle was dead, so he couldn't answer. Neither Fang Yan nor Bat could answer. Whoever answered first would be discouraged. However, for Bat, no one answered, which was the clearest answer. His eyes flashed with a trace of coldness. All he could do was concentrate on driving. They were now on the mountain road down the mountain. The road was steep, and a little carelessness could lead to death. "Don't move." The woman in black finally spoke. "If you dare to move a finger, I will immediately press the bomb button." Master Yen stretched out a finger and shook it in front of the woman in black. This was a provocation. A naked provocation. "You deserve to die." The woman in black's eyes were cold, and a lot of anger accumulated in her chest. This guy was too shameless. He was humiliating her. She also began to regret. Why didn't she let Deagle shoot him in the head? If he was dead, this wouldn't have happened, right? However, he was kidnapped by the ci shui. How could he escape unscathed? It seemed that she had too much faith in the power of technology. In the face of a real master, even the most advanced weapons and the most solid Skynet would fail. "Don't say such meaningless words," Fang Yan said. "I can't do it without moving a finger. If my nose is itchy, do you not allow others to scratch it? I promise you that I won't attack you again. Aren't you afraid that I will press the button?" The woman in black's eyes were full of murderous intent. Fang Yan pointed to the ci shui that was still stuck in Deagle's body and said, "That thing is no longer in my hands." "So what? If I press the button and the bomb explodes, the whole car will be overturned. You and your woman will be corroded by the venom," the woman in black threatened. "Then why haven't you done that yet?" Fang Yan asked. This stupid woman finally broke the bomb's attack range. If she didn't say it, Fang Yan couldn't guess the answer, and he had to be careful with this kind of thing. She must not have thought that her threat would make Fang Yen even more fearless. The woman in black felt that she was stabbed in the chest again. This bastard son of a bitch, do your parents know that your mouth is so vicious? If you dare to provoke me again, I will press the button and die with you. Fang Yen seemed to be able to see through all her thoughts. He waved his hand and said, "Don't tell me that you have gone through the cruel training of the organization and have long disregarded life and death, or that you are deeply grateful to the organization and are willing to die for the organization. I don't believe such bullshit. If you can live, who would want to die? I guess you don't want to, right? People who risk their lives to kill are also the people who are most afraid of death, because they are afraid that they can't kill others but won't be killed. This is a demon." The woman in black thought in her heart. He understood people's hearts and human nature. Although the bomb button was in his hands, why did it seem like he had the right to speak? The woman in black felt that she was very useless. She was a professional assassin. She took people's money to eliminate disasters and specialized in this kind of business. How could she be more afraid of death than a hostage? If I fail, I will be worse than death when I return to the organization. The woman in black said. So, I don't mind dying with you. I know you have such troubles, so I am willing to give you a chance to negotiate. Fang Yen said with a compassionate face, as if he was completely thinking for you. The woman in black took a few glances at his head, but she didn't see any glittering golden circles. What do you want to talk about? The woman in black asked. You can't beat me, right? Fang Yen said. The woman in black's body was trembling. Don't force me. If you force me, I will really press it. I will really press it. You are not as good as me in a one-on-one fight. Although you have a remote control in your hand, if you press it, you will blow yourself up at the same time you blow us up. So, there is no difference if this remote control is in your hand or in my hand. Fang Yen analyzed clearly. What do you want to say? The woman in black was a little impatient. Fighting and killing were their strengths. A white knife went in and a red knife came out. If there was a disagreement, they would blow you up into minced meat and corrode your bones. This was the style of their arsenal. What are you trying to do by taking such a big detour in the clouds and fog? Haven't you noticed yet? Fang Yen looked at the woman in black like he was looking at an idiot. You have been kidnapped by me. This was no longer stabbing a knife in the chest. This was throwing a bomb in the face of their arsenal. They came to kidnap and kill, but now they heard the hostages say to them, "You have been kidnapped by me." Is this guy crazy? You are the hostage, okay? We are the kidnappers, okay? You don't know your own status, and you still dare to come and negotiate with us? I know you can't accept what I said for a while, and you feel that your pride is hurt. But if you think about it carefully, everything I said is the truth. Fang Yen said, I am not as greedy as you, extorting this and wanting that. Give me that watch, tell me who ordered you. Then stop the car on the side of the road, and I will let you go. From now on, we will never meet again. Chapter 235. Dreams were plentiful, but reality was harsh. Seeing the black-faced woman trembling with anger, Fang Yen knew that his negotiation had failed. Yes, since he found out that the woman's face was darker than the clothes she wore, Fang Yen no longer called her the black-faced woman, but the black-faced woman. He wanted to call her a black-hearted woman, but for some reason, when he thought of the word black-hearted, his heart felt inexplicably uncomfortable, so he gave up the idea. Don't be angry. Fang Yen looked at the black-dressed woman slowly. Negotiation, negotiation. How can it be considered a negotiation if we don't talk? Whatever conditions you have, just say it. I'm not a person who's easy to talk to. If you're not easy to talk to, then what conditions do you want me to bring up? The black-dressed woman's face darkened even more. She looked at Fang Yen and said, I only have one condition, and that is to bring the target back. You can go, but Miss Qin must stay. Fang Yen turned around and looked at Qin Yitin. She was sitting far away in the corner of the car, letting Sha Ying's body block in front of her. Blood flowed out and soaked the hem of her dress, but she didn't care. She was very good at protecting herself. No matter what, She didn't panic and looked for the best opportunity and hiding place. Fang Yan looked at Qin Yitian thoughtfully. He really didn't know what this girl had experienced. Impossible. Fang Yan simply refused the black-dressed woman's request. If she leaves, I'll leave. If she doesn't leave, I won't leave either. Of course, she can go, but you can keep me. I'll be your hostage. You're useless. The black-dressed woman was also very dissatisfied with Fang Yan's proposal. And it was very insulting. My task is to take Miss Qin away. I thought you were a bonus, but now I find you're trouble. You can leave, but she must stay. Qin Yitian looked at Fang Yan's back and said, Fang Yan, you go. I'll stay. They don't dare to kill me. If they kill me, they won't get anything. Moreover, she would suffer the cruelest revenge from the Qin family. Regardless of whether it is her or her organization, they would not do such a stupid thing. Fang Yan shook his head and said, No. You should know that this is the best choice. I know it's the best choice. I know, but I can't. Fang Yan said rudely. If I wasn't Fang Yan, but any other teacher in the school, I would follow your advice and choose to leave by myself. Because none of them would be able to solve the problem if they stayed behind. It was very likely that they would become a resentful spirit under their blades and another broken family. I am Fang Yan. When faced with such a situation, I absolutely cannot run away and abandon my students. If my grandfather finds out, he will cut off all ties with me. If my grandfather found out, he would break one of my legs. Your family education is really good. Qin Yitian praised. Fang Yan was also very proud and said, Our Fang family is also a rich and powerful family. Fang Yan felt that it was better not to talk about this in front of Qin Yitian. It was too embarrassing. He stared at the dark-faced woman and said, If you are afraid of the organization's revenge, I can give you a clear path. Since you kidnapped a woman from the Qin family, you must have a certain understanding of the Qin family, right? Why don't you abandon the darkness and join the light? Let's send Miss Qin safely back to the Qin family. I believe the Qin family's reward is enough for you to enjoy for the rest of your life, and I can also take advantage of it. What do you think? After failing to instigate the ghost fisherman, Fang Yan had been unwilling to accept it. He stood on the side of justice, and the conditions he proposed were so generous. Why didn't those guys want to turn over a new leaf? He had read many novels where the male protagonists in other novels would immediately turn over a new leaf when they encountered a villain. They would curse and shout that they wanted to be the male protagonist's lackey, but they couldn't be beaten or scolded away. They would shelter from the sun when it was sunny, hold an umbrella when it was raining, and play the flute when the enemy came. Most importantly, they wouldn't betray and ask for money. Fang Yan felt that he was a failure as a person. So, as long as there was a chance, he would try to improve his personal charm. I've lost my patience with you. The woman in black took out a silver ball from her waist and threw it at him. When Fang Yan saw it, he kicked the ball back. Then, he turned around and pounced on Qin Yitian. He used his own body to cover Qin Yitian from head to toe. Bang! The ball was thrown on the ground, but it didn't explode. Also did not have the intense let people open their eyes to the light circle. This is a pair of handcuffs. The woman in black's eyes flashed with ridicule. Open it, then lock your arms properly. Otherwise, I will press the button. Just like you said, I'm not afraid of death. But, if the mission fails, death is the best ending. Fang Yan could see that this woman was serious. If he didn't do as she said, she would really press the button and blow herself and the whole car up. Then, their bodies would be corroded by the green liquid into a pool of charred black residue. 3. The woman in black began to count. I'll handcuff. Fang Yan said hurriedly. He could count for others, but he hated it when others counted for him. This made him feel that he didn't have much time left, as if he could die at any time. Fang Yan picked up the ball and pressed a red button on it. The ball immediately stretched out and turned into a shining silver handcuff. Fang Yan didn't know what material this handcuff was made of, but he knew that if he wore this thing, even the bone shrinking skill wouldn't be able to save him. Clang! The wheels ran over a big stone, and the whole car bounced. Fang Yan's body fell forward mechanically. Qin Etienne's and Xia Ying's corpses also fell toward the front of the car. The woman in black's body fell backward, her hands grabbing the legs of the seat to prevent her body from moving. Seeing Fang Yan rushing toward her, she was a little hesitant. Because she couldn't be sure if Fang Yan was leaning forward due to the car's unstable inertia, or if he was using this opportunity to attack. This was a serious matter. If she pressed the button, everything in front of her would disappear. It was because of this moment of hesitation that she hurt herself. Or rather, she helped Fang Yan. For her, whether she put down the button or pressed the button, there wouldn't be much difference. But for Fang Yan and Qin Etienne, there was a world of difference. Perhaps for others, she couldn't do anything in less than a second of hesitation. It was just a blink of an eye or a fart. But for Fang Yan, this little bit of time was more than enough. Fang Yan's hand shot out like lightning. The dark-skinned woman wanted to dodge, but Fang Yan still grabbed her wrist. The woman in black was furious and full of hatred. She finally let go of the thought of survival, and resolutely pressed the electronic watch on her wrist. She wanted to die together with Fang Yan, Qin Etienne, and her companion Bat. This was the style of their arsenal. Because of Fang Yan's bewitching words, she actually had a fluke mentality. That was why things had been delayed until now. She regretted it so much. Too late. Fang Yan's big hand exerted force and directly crushed the woman's arm bone. Crack. The sound of bones breaking came, and her fingers couldn't press anymore. Fang Yan snatched the electronic watch from her crippled hand. He wanted to smash it into pieces, but he didn't know how to do it. He was afraid that he would detonate the bomb that the dark-skinned woman wouldn't have a chance to detonate. He wanted to open the door, but the door was blocked, and he couldn't open it. Clang. Fang Yan punched the window glass, but the glass didn't break. Fang Yan was really angry. These bastards actually used explosion-proof glass. His punch that could easily penetrate a big stone was actually useless. Clang, clang, clang. Fang Yan punched the window glass again and again. He didn't believe that he couldn't break this glass. The urgent task now was to throw this damn remote control and the thorn bomb out, and then get rid of the woman. After just 3 punches, the woman in black pounced from behind. Fang Yan turned around abruptly and sent the dark-faced woman flying with a punch. Fang Yan had practiced internal martial arts since he was young, and his strength was majestic. It wasn't something that these people who relied on high-tech weapons to kill people could compare to. The advantage of the woman in black was that she was agile and fast. Coupled with those weapons that were impossible to defend against, they were invincible and developed a proud and arrogant personality. They thought that there was nothing in this world that they couldn't do. Unfortunately, they met the true successor of Fang family Tai Chi, Fang Yan. The woman couldn't even block his punch when her hands were intact. Now that one of her arms was crushed by Fang Yan, she was even more vulnerable. Fang Yan punched out, and the woman's fist collided with his fist. Her whole body slammed into the hard floor of the car. Clang. This was the sound of a body hitting the car. Clang. This was the sound of a body sliding down the car wall. The woman had the determination to die. She didn't care, and instead exploded with even more ferocious combat power. Letting the bright red blood flow down the corner of her mouth and nostrils, the woman once again rushed toward Fang Yan. Bang! Fang Yan punched her chest, but she took the punch head-on. Her body fell to the ground, and she took the opportunity to hug Fang Yan's legs. Fang Yan was ready to lower his head and give her another punch to solve this problem once and for all. Clang, 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 clang. The car suddenly shook violently. The front of the car tilted, and it rushed toward the slope next to the mountain road. Fang Yan tried his best to use the jack to prevent his body from falling. The woman's heavily injured body swayed left and right on the carboard, hitting the legs of the chair and the car wall. However, she really hated Fang Yan to the core. She used her relatively healthy arm to hug Fang Yan's calf tightly. She didn't have a better way to hurt Fang Yan. She suddenly opened her mouth and bit Fang Yan's leg. Fang Yan! Qin Etienne screamed. Her thin body quickly rushed toward Fang Yan. A bullet pierced through Qin Etienne's body and came out from Fang Yan's back. With a bang, it hit the back of the car, creating a deep dent on the solid steel plate. Chapter 236. Bat was a very calm person. He was so calm that he was almost callous. As a sniper, he had to eliminate the distractions of the harsh environment around him, learn to recognize fake movements, and search for the real body of the target amidst complicated concealment objects and strange rolling and running movements. He had to strive to achieve a headshot. If he had played a game called Counter-Strike, he would know that no one disliked the thrill of a headshot. Although the main driver's compartment and the rear compartment were separated by a plank, there was still a hole in the middle for people to communicate or pass cigarettes and alcohol. Bat had long sensed the abnormality in the rear compartment, but he was still focused on driving. They were now driving at high speed on the mountain road, and the slightest carelessness would cause the car to overturn. However, when he called Deagle's name, Deagle did not respond. His dog-like nose smelled the thick smell of blood in the rear compartment, and he knew that the situation was out of control. Otherwise, why would Octopus not even send a signal to reassure him? She did not send a signal, which meant that the development of the situation was very worrying. What a bunch of idiots, Deagle cursed in his heart. How could a guy who was bound by blood, and the bomb's remote control was still in Octopus's hand, give him time and opportunity to fight back? If he sensed anything, he would have shot him dead. He was not a big shot anyway. When he heard Octopus's painful groan, he knew that he could not wait any longer. Deagle was dead, Octopus was seriously injured, and they could escape immediately. Without any hesitation, he turned the steering wheel and drove the car towards the slope next to the mountain road. It was a steep slope, and the car sped up as it went down. Bat abandoned the car and let the car crash into the bottomless cliff. He was like a bat lying on the window and shooting at Fang Yen. He had already secretly made a small hole in the wall. He had fought with Fang Yen before. Whether it was the remote bomb codenamed Bluebird or his long-range sniper, Fang Yen had dodged all of them. Therefore, he knew very well that this guy was the real threat. As long as he killed him, everything would be fine, and they could still bring Qin Etian back to complete the mission. The car was bumpy and unstable, and with Octopus risking his life to attack, Desert Eagle easily found an opportunity to shoot. Qin Etian sat in the corner of the carriage. Although the carriage was shaking violently and their lives were in danger, Qin Etian still maintained absolute calmness. Her mother had told her that the more dangerous the situation was, the more calm she had to be. Because at that time, your time is the most precious. Don't waste a single second. They couldn't afford to waste it. Qin Etian had always done a good job in this regard. When she saw the Desert Eagle outside the car window, she immediately threw herself at Fang Yen. Seeing Qin Etian take the bullet for Fang Yen, Bat's pupils constricted. Since they kidnapped Qin Etian, they naturally knew Qin Etian's true identity. If he didn't conduct a thorough investigation on his target, he might slip up or offend a big shot that he couldn't afford to offend. Even if he provoked him, he still had to get a corresponding reward, right? She was the young lady of the Qin family. Such a delicate woman was willing to take a bullet for a man. That must be the legendary true love, right? Soon after, a cold smile appeared on his face. Do you think you can block my bullets just because you want to? He regretted that he didn't take out his sniper rifle. That was the weapon he was best at. With one shot, he could blast a big hole in their bodies or directly blow their heads off. Unfortunately, he kept the sniper rifle in the box, and it was not as useful in close combat as the custom-made Borg in his hand. When Bat wanted to pull the trigger again, Fang Yen disappeared right under his nose. Qin Etian also disappeared at the same time. He knew that there was only one possibility. He was hiding next to the wall of the car that was close to him. In other words, the distance between them was only a thick wall of the car. Bang bang bang, Bat fired continuously at the wall of the car, trying to penetrate it and kill Fang Yen. Unfortunately, the bulletproof car that had been modified by the armory was extremely strong. Ordinary bullets couldn't penetrate it. Even the accelerated bullets of his Borg pistol couldn't penetrate it. The dark-skinned woman saw that Fang Yen was injured. She didn't want to give Fang Yen a chance to breathe. She climbed up from the ground and pounced on Fang Yen again. She wanted to push Fang Yen to the window, to the middle of the car, and to the shooting range of Bat. If Fang Yen died, their mission would be completed. even if they might have to pay with their lives. Fang Yan pushed Qin Etienne's body under the seat to prevent her from getting hurt again. Then he turned around and rushed toward the dark-skinned woman, letting her hold on to his arm tightly. "You don't know what you have done," Fang Yan roared with a hoarse voice. His eyes were blood red, and they were filled with dense blood vessels. Qin Etienne's injury had completely infuriated him. An intense heat came from his dantian. It was as if his body was going to be incinerated. Although there was no smoke, Fang Yan felt that his body was boiling, as if he was in a big iron furnace that had just been heated. His blood was hot. It was scalding hot. This wasn't the heart of Tai Chi, nor was it the state of Tai Chi. This was the complete opposite of the calm and peaceful state of the Taiji heart, where everything was still. He wanted to vent. He wanted to expel the heat from his body. The dark-skinned woman's heart skipped a beat. She saw a suffocating murderous aura from Fang Yan's eyes. She was an assassin. How could an assassin be afraid of murderous aura? The dark-skinned woman became even crazier. She used all her strength to hit Fang Yan's body. She took out another ball from her pocket. She was going to perish together with everyone in the car. She wanted to destroy and drown everything that had failed. This was also the rule of the armory. If the mission failed, they would work hard to cover up the secret of the armory in this world. Die! Fang Yan roared. Boom! With one punch, red and white matter splattered everywhere. The head of the woman in black had actually disappeared, and she had become a headless corpse. Fang Yan punched out furiously. His aura surged and his strength was as great as Mount Tai pressing down on the Yangtze River. How could the body of a mortal withstand the pressure of Mount Tai and the rushing of a great river? Even if steel could be pierced and rocks could be smashed, a mere head would naturally be hard to find. What was even more frightening was that the flesh and blood that flew out actually carried a burnt smell. Fire chi, fire chi, fire chi. The stronger the chi, the fiercer the fire. But the dark-skinned woman's petite body collapsed to the ground. Just as the ball was about to hit the ground, Fang Yan flicked it with the tip of his foot and it jumped back into Fang Yan's hand. Fang Yan's face and body were drenched in blood, and he looked like a god of death. He turned around and punched Bat's car window with a loud bang. Boom, the glass was on the verge of breaking. Boom, another punch. Cracks began to appear on the glass, and it looked like it was about to explode. In order to sneak an attack on Fang Yan, Bat had purposely opened a gap in the window. Because of this gap, he had the opportunity to shoot and injure Qin Etienne and Fang Yan. However, it was also because of this gap that Fang Yan had the opportunity to smash it. If the glass was tightly fastened to the inside of the window frame, it would be like the glass on the other side, airtight and as hard as alloy. The third punch. Finally, the glass could not withstand the heavy blows and cracked open. Bat, who had been lying on the roof of the car and waiting for an opportunity to shoot, dodged the flying glass shards and raised his gun to shoot at the window. Before he could pull the trigger, Fang Yan grabbed his arm. With a forceful tug, Bat's body was pulled into the window. Although large pieces of glass fell off, there were still some glass shards stubbornly stuck to the edge of the window frame. With such a violent pull from Fang Yan, a few pieces of Bat's skin and flesh were torn off by the glass shards. A few bloody grooves appeared on his stomach and back. Only then did Bat realize that his strength was not on the same level as Fang Yan's. No matter how hard he tried, he could not break free from Fang Yan's iron grip. Fang Yan pressed Bat's body against the floor of the car and raised his foot. Bat's arm that was holding the gun was broken. Fang Yan raised his foot again and broke the arm that was not holding Bat's hand. His clothes were torn into pieces, his bones were crushed, and his skin and flesh were separated from his body. Fang Yan destroyed both of Bat's arms, leaving him no chance to hold the gun or turn the tables. Then he grabbed the gun from Bat's hand that was separated from his body and pulled the trigger desperately at Bat's head. Bang, 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 bang. Until all the bullets in the gun magazine were emptied, Fang Yan smashed the gun on Bat's broken body. Bat lay there motionless. His head had been smashed to pieces by Fang Yan, and his body was already dead. Clang! The car hit a boulder on the way down the slope. The car was unstable and the whole car rolled over. Clang, 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 clang. It rolled faster and faster, and was about to fall into the abyss. Fang Yen rushed over to pick up Qin Yitian, and the two of them rushed toward the broken window. While their bodies were still in the air, Fang Yen flicked his finger, and a silver ball flew back into the car. Boom, a muffled sound came, and the solid car was blown into pieces. A large amount of green liquid splashed out, corroding the plants, insects, stones, and even the air into ashes. Fang Yen tiptoed, and his body bounced up again when he was about to hit the ground. He rolled a few times in the air and finally adjusted his body's balance. Then he landed steadily with Qin Yitian in his arms. Qin Yitian. Fang Yen shouted to Qin Yitian in his arms. I'll take you to the doctor now, you can't die. Qin Yitian struggled to open his eyes. His voice was weak, but there was no trace of fear. He said with a smile, I'm not as good as her, I can only help you block the knife. Chapter 237. He was on the mountainside, and the car had crashed. Fang Yen was in a dilemma. The nearest building to them was the Zhang Yuan restaurant at the top of the mountain. As long as he carried Qin Yitian up there, he would be able to get the car. Then he would drive Qin Yitian to the hospital, which would be faster. Alternatively, he could carry Qin Yitian and run to the foot of the mountain, where there was a gas station and parking lot not far away. There should be a car that he could borrow. Of course, waiting by the roadside was a good way to save energy. Because there would always be some customers driving back from the Zhang Yuan restaurant at the top of the mountain after dinner, Fang Yen only needed to hijack the car halfway. Fang Yen put Qin Yitian on the grass by the roadside and pressed several acupuncture points on her body. This would slow down the speed of her blood loss. He rummaged through all the pockets on his body, but they were all empty. There was no medicine to stop the bleeding or heal his wounds. He slapped himself in the face and ran to the foot of the mountain with Qin Yitian in his arms. Qin Yitian covered Fang Yan's chest and said, You're hurt. You're bleeding a lot. Don't talk, Fang Yen shouted. Talking would pull at the wound and even consume energy. At this time, it was very important for the body to retain some energy. If it took too long without treatment, and Qin Yitian ran out of energy, she would never wake up again. Fang Yen, tell me, if I didn't rush over to block the bullet for you, could you have dodged it yourself? Qin Yitian had never been an obedient person. Although Fang Yen yelled at her not to speak, she had no intention of stopping at all. Don't talk. Fang Yen was panting, and his heart was beating fast. Although he was also injured, his legs were still flying. He had to find a car as soon as possible and send Qin Yitian to the hospital as soon as possible. You haven't answered my question, don't talk. Fang Yen almost roared. You haven't answered my question? Qin Yitian was far more stubborn than Fang Yen imagined. We can't hide, Fang Yen said in a deep voice. Qin Yitian was very happy and laughed silently. Fang Yen, you lied to me. Qin Yitian's voice was very low, but his expression looked very happy. Fang Yen didn't want to reply. If he didn't talk to her, she probably wouldn't be interested in talking to him, right? In the past, I always liked to calculate. No matter what I did, I liked to think it through in my mind first. Was there any danger in this matter? Were there any loopholes in this decision? How much profit was there in this investment? Maybe it's because his IQ is not bad, he has never missed anything. Qin Yitian said softly. She closed her eyes as if talking to herself. However, Fang Yen could hear every single word that came out of her mouth. Then, it flowed into his heart. People outside say that I have wisdom, and I also think I'm very smart. Calculating has become the norm of life. I don't do things based on feelings, and the rhythm of life is never off track. I also like this state. Sometimes I feel a little irritated, but at least it's comfortable and comfortable. When there's a bodyguard, you need a bodyguard to protect you. When the bodyguard is not around, you have to learn to take care of yourself. But when I saw someone shooting at you, I rushed over without thinking. I forgot to calculate and ignored the pros and cons. I just thought that I can't let him kill you. I will make sure that you live. If I live, you have to live. You idiot, I told you not to talk. You're a student, you're my student, I'm your teacher, can you listen to me for once? Fang Yen shouted while gritting his teeth. His forehead was dripping with sweat, and his chest was bleeding profusely. The front half of his clothes was soaked with blood, and the back half was soaked with sweat. However, the unlucky girl in his arms was still talking non-stop. Didn't she know that it was really dangerous? If he could, he really wanted to slap her until she fainted. But he was worried that if he did that, Xianxia would never wake up. She would never wake up. Didn't they say on TV that people who have been shot must talk more? Because that way, they won't faint. That's someone else. You won't faint. Fang Yen said with absolute certainty. He had been transferring energy into Xianxia's body carefully and gently, so that her body's organs would always be in a basic state of operation, and her brain would always be awake. But you can't waste all this life-saving energy, right? It was fine if he could transfer it now, but if he couldn't transfer it later, Fang Yen couldn't imagine the consequences. Fighting and killing were common occurrences for martial artists. Fang Yen had experienced the test of life and death, and even suffered the torture of injuries. But he had never been as afraid as he was today. He was afraid that he would die, and he was afraid that the girl in his arms would die. I don't believe that I will faint either. Although I have no strength in my body, my brain is very clear. Xianxia said. I know that you can dodge it. When I threw myself at you, I remembered that with your skills, you must be able to dodge it. Because I threw myself at you, it affected your performance and made you get shot together with me. I said that I can't dodge it. I'm not a god. Fang Yen corrected Xianxia's words. Fang Yen, I said that my brain is very clear now. Xianxia exposed Fang Yen's lie. But I like the lie you told. The reason why you said that you can't dodge it is because you don't want me to blame myself. You're afraid that I will blame myself because you start to care about me. In the evening, the sky was still full of sunlight, but at night, it became dark and cloudy, and it might rain at any time. This was the weather in the south. Beep, 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 strong lights shone, and there was a sharp sound of a car horn behind him. Fang Yen breathed a sigh of relief. Finally, there was a car coming. He did not dodge. Instead, he stood in the middle of the mountain road with Xianxia in his arms. The driver originally wanted to crash into them, but he did not slow down and instead increased the horsepower. As the ancients said, when two people meet on a narrow road, the braver one wins. If he did not stop, the person in front would definitely dodge. The distance was getting closer and closer, but the person in the way did not jump away. Screech. The white BMW stopped in front of Fang Yen. The window was opened, and a young man with a buzz cut and earrings pointed at Fang Yen and scolded, "Are you fucking blind or deaf? You don't know how to dodge the horn, and you can't see such a strong headlight. Do you believe that I won't kill you?" There was also a coquettish girl who looked at Fang Yen with vigilance, urging her boyfriend to drive away quickly. Because she found that Fang Yen and Xianxia were covered in blood. It was really scary. Fang Yen carried Xianxia to the passenger seat, opened the door with one hand, and dragged the girl out of the car. Then he put Xianxia in the car and carefully helped her fasten the seatbelt. With a flip, he jumped from the top of the car to the opposite side. When the man with the earring wanted to lock the window, he had already dragged his head out and pressed it against the window, so that he could not move. "You don't mind lending me the car, do you?" As Fang Yen spoke, he had already opened the door. The man with the earrings' head was stuck in the door, and he was dragged out of the car with him. This guy was not afraid of death, and he did not even fasten the seatbelt. "No problem. No problem." The man with the earring cried and said. Originally, he wanted to say a few harsh words, but before he could open his mouth, the guy had already hit him. They were much more ruthless than him. Moreover, it was dark on the mountain road. If the robber really wanted to do anything to them, he really could not do anything. "Thank you," Fang Yen said. Clink. The door closed and the car sped away. The woman ran to the side of the man with the earring and said hurriedly, "Zhou Bing, quickly call the police. Our car was robbed." "Call the police? What police?" The man with the earring said angrily. Who said that the car was robbed? They borrowed it. Didn't you hear him say thank you to me? He thought, this idiot woman, if she called the police, the fact that his car was robbed would be known by his brothers in the circle. How could he go out and meet people in the future? After getting the car, the speed was obviously much faster. Fang Yan found a mobile phone in the car and said, "Give me a number." Qin Etian lay on the seat and said a row of numbers. The clouds were getting lower and the wind was getting stronger. The raindrops finally fell, beating on the car window with a pitter-patter. As soon as the car entered the suburbs, a group of people stopped Fang Yan's car. They rushed over here, led by the old housekeeper that Fang Yan had met a few times and often took the car to pick up Qin Etian. Someone opened the car door, someone helped hold an umbrella, and more people carried the unconscious Qin Etian lying on the seat. They even had a stretcher ready. Fang Yan threw away the borrowed BMW and followed. Qin Etian was sent into a huge white medical car. The doctors and nurses in white coats who were waiting in the car immediately got busy. Fang Yan wanted to get in the car, but was blocked by the old housekeeper. "Let me go up," Fang Yan said in a deep voice. The old housekeeper did not say a word, but his attitude was very clear. Fang Yan could not go up. "Let me go up," Fang Yan said again. He punched the old housekeeper's expressionless face. Bang! The old housekeeper gently raised his hand and blocked Fang Yan's fist. The old housekeeper sighed softly and said, "Why? Mistrusted you, so I gave her to you. Now, do you still want to affect Mrs. Treatment?" Fang Yan's whole body was wet. The rain and blood mixed together. His eyes were red. He bowed deeply to the old housekeeper and said, "Please." The motorcade went away. Fang Yan, standing in the rain, felt that a piece of his heart had been dug out. Chapter 238. Qin Etian. Fang Yan shouted from the podium. No one answered. The heads of the students in the class turned to the back row, and then their gazes returned to Fang Yan. What was wrong with Mr. Fang? In the past, he knew which students were absent and which students asked for leave, and he had never made such a mistake. Just because Qin Etian wasn't around, he was in such a daze? Huang Haoren stood up and said, "Mr. Fang, Qin Etian hasn't come to class for several days." Thinking about it, he felt indignant. Very few people ran away from Mr. Fang's Chinese class, but Qin Etian was an exception. And he left just like that, without even leaving a note. He added, he didn't ask for leave either. Fang Yan looked a little absent-minded. Yes, Qin Etian hadn't come to class for several days. He left in a big way and quietly, without even leaving a note. Fang Yan had called her, but the number she used was still unavailable. Later, Fang Yan had asked Fang Yingying to go to the top of Yizhang Mountain to look for Qin Etian's bag, but Fang Yingying had come back to report that the bag was gone. Even the GMC car that Fang Yan had said had been blown to pieces had disappeared. Yes, there would always be an end to this kind of thing. It was either that mysterious armory organization or someone from the Qin family. Any one of them had the ability to erase all traces of that night, as if nothing had ever happened. Students were required to leave a home phone number or the phone number of their immediate family in the school's file for the convenience of the school and the students' parents. However, Qin Etian's information only had a home number in Huaqing. The call was answered by a middle-aged woman. She said that she was Qin Etian's aunt, but the aunt's knowledge was limited. She didn't even know where Qin Etian had gone. Qin Etian seemed to have suddenly disappeared. He disappeared from Class 9, from Rosefinch, from Flower City, and from Fang Yan's world. "Mr. Fang." Huang Haoren saw Fang Yan standing on the podium in a daze and asked, "Do you want to call Qin Etian?" Tang Cheng's head rested on the table as he lazily said, "I've fought before." No one answered. Without Qin Etian, Tang Cheng felt that class was too boring. Fang Yan's class was better. It was humorous and witty, and the topics were relatively new. At least it could make him a little more energetic. Besides, even if Fang Yan's class was boring, he had to force himself to be energetic. He couldn't beat Fang Yan. In other teachers' classes, he used to sleep to pass the time. If the teacher was angry and asked him to answer a question, He could answer correctly every time, leaving the teachers speechless and helpless. This kind of behavior could win a lot of applause from other students. They felt that Tangqing, who could answer all the questions without listening in class, was too cool. After a few times, the teachers turned a blind eye to his various bad habits. They didn't want to give this kid a chance to gain face. Qin Etian wasn't feeling well, so he applied for leave from school in advance. I forgot about this, Fang Yan explained. Then let Huang Haoren answer this question. When Fang Yan was in class, if the question was too profound and none of the students could answer it, Fang Yan would call out the names of Qin Etian, Tangqing, or Huang Haoren. Their views on the problem could often bring surprises or inspiration. This wasn't because he was biased towards these students, but because he wanted to use this method to tell other students that any question could be answered. As long as you were good at thinking, you could do as well as them. He wanted to motivate the students' learning enthusiasm and the desire to compete with others. As long as there was competition within the class, the students' learning could continue to improve. Today, Fang Yan habitually called out the name of Qin Etian, but the owner of that name couldn't use the most elegant posture and the most correct answer to win the students' warm applause like before. Huang Haoren didn't think too much and began to answer the questions raised by Fang Yan seriously. The bell rang, and Fang Yan walked down the podium with his textbook. Tangqing, who looked like he couldn't even sit up straight, suddenly jumped up and ran to the front of the podium to block Fang Yan's way. He said, "Mr. Fang, you know where Qin Etian went, right?" Fang Yan looked at Tangqing's handsome facial features, and his heart was filled with infinite emotions. He didn't approve of love in high school, because this was the time to desperately absorb knowledge. This was also one of the most critical periods in one's life. Students didn't know how to reasonably arrange their time and control their feelings. They would regard love as the only thing. They would think of that person and miss that person when they were walking or eating in class. In this case, where would they have time to learn and complete the most important accumulation of knowledge in life? However, he knew that he couldn't stop this phenomenon with his own strength. If possible, he hoped that the person Qin Etian liked was Tangqing. Their feelings were quiet, hidden, bitter, sweet, and most importantly, Tangqing also liked her wholeheartedly, just like other girls who fell in love early in high school. The biggest punishment was just the teacher's reprimand and the parents' scolding. In any case, there was no need to use his body to block bullets. An unintentional sacrifice in exchange for such a desperate return. Was it really worth it? Fang Yan's heart was in a mess. Fang Yan looked at Tangqing and said, "Didn't you try? You couldn't get through to her phone, and I couldn't get through to her." But Tangqing scratched his hair and looked a little embarrassed. He was still a student. A student asking a teacher about the whereabouts of another female student. After all, it would give people the feeling that it was too bold and direct. She will leave at any time. I didn't think such a thing would happen. However, if she really wanted to leave, she would definitely tell you. So, if there is someone in Rosefinch who can know her whereabouts, that person must be you. Fang Yan looked at Tangqing apologetically and said, "I really don't know." Fang Yan took the textbook and prepared to leave, but Tangqing once again blocked in front of Fang Yan. "Mr. Fang, tell me, did something happen to Qin Etian?" Tangqing asked nervously. Fang Yan looked at Tangqing and said, "Why do you ask?" "You didn't deny." Tangqing's face was even more embarrassed. "Moreover, you haven't laughed for several days." "Haven't laughed for several days?" Fang Yan was stunned. "Mr. Fang, if anything happens to her, you must tell me," Tangqing said. "If she gives you any information, please tell me." Tangqing bowed to Fang Yan and said, "I'll be counting on you." "Oh, please." Tangqing also said, "Please." He said to the old housekeeper, "Please take good care of Qin Etian. Please save Qin Etian no matter what." Tangqing also said please. He hoped to know the whereabouts of Qin Etian and whether she was doing well. Fang Yan felt the wound on his chest throbbing again. He couldn't see his face, but it must be frighteningly pale at this time, right? Fang Yan patted Tangqing's shoulder and turned to walk out of the classroom. Tangqing looked at Fang Yan's depressed figure and suddenly felt some sympathy for him. Headmaster Zhang Xiaofeng happened to appear at the door of the classroom. He waved at Fang Yan and said, "Mr. Fang, let's walk a few steps." Fang Yan nodded and followed Zhang Xiaofeng to the teacher's office. "The weather is getting colder and colder," Zhang Xiaofeng said with a smile. "Although Huaqing is located in the southernmost part of Huaxia, it's very cold in winter. The coldness drilled into the bones, but here we are in the mood to pretend to be intimate in the room. When I first came here, this old man had suffered for a few years." "Headmaster Zhang is not from Huaqing?" "No. From Jincheng." "From Jincheng," Zhang Xiaofeng said. "Jincheng's winter is also cold. It's not as cold as Huaqing's. When winter comes, it snows heavily, and the whole world is dyed white. Speaking of which, it's been a few years since I went back to Jincheng for the spring festival." Zhang Xiaofeng didn't beat around the bush. He looked at Fang Yan and said, "Qin Yitian isn't feeling well, so she went back to Yanjing for treatment. Her family called to ask for leave. You already know about this, right?" "I don't know," Fang Yan said. His heart started to sink. It wasn't Qin Yitian who contacted him, but her family who contacted the headmaster directly. What happened to Qin Yitian? How serious was her injury? Had she not woken up yet? "Isn't Qin Yitian quite healthy? I've never heard of any illness in the past." Zhang Xiaofeng seemed to say it casually, but in fact, he wanted to find out some real information from Fang Yan. He only received a call to ask for leave, and he had no clue what exactly happened. He still paid a lot of attention to such a girl. He was also willing to maintain a closer relationship with her and her family. Fang Yan looked at Zhang Xiaofeng with a serious expression and said, "Headmaster, I don't know as much as you do. Did Qin Yitian's family say anything else?" Fang Yan's reply made Zhang Xiaofeng feel regretful. He shook his head and said, "Nothing much, just a call to ask for leave. I'll let you know about this. It's fine as long as you know." Fang Yan nodded and said, "I know." Zhang Xiaofeng waved his hand at Fang Yan and said with a smile, "Go do what you need to do. I'll go for a stroll." It was already lunchtime, and Fang Yan didn't go to the office again. When he returned to the small courtyard, he found that there were guests in the house. Two men in black stood at the door, staring warily at Fang Yan, who had just pushed the door open. Fang Yan nodded to them and directly passed by them. Lu Zhaoge, who was wearing a silver professional suit that accentuated his perfect figure, sat on the sofa in the living room. Fang Yingxiong and Fang Haohan, the two little henchmen, accompanied him on his left and right, chatting, serving tea and fruits, and were very busy. Seeing that Fang Yan had come back, Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan immediately stood up and said tactfully, "You talk, you talk." Then, the two tactfully ran into the room. The living room was left to Fang Yan and Lu Zhaoge. You're tuning in to the Wang Lin's Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.